Welcome back, everybody. It's a pleasure to have you here with us tonight. I have a special guest for you tonight. This is Nichole from Glowing Geckos LLC. She comes highly recommended and suggested by lots of you guys, especially my buddy Scott over at Miami Art Geckos. He couldn't speak more highly about you than he has. I also have a few things that he asked me to ask you, so we'll get into that later.
Uh-oh.
But
That's a surprise
if you
to
don't
me.
mind, real quick, can you just, for anybody that doesn't know who you are, give us a quick introduction into maybe who you are and what your business is, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff?
Yeah, of course. Hello, my name is Nichole. Glowing Geckos is my company, and I really do love geckos. I mostly work with crested geckos, but I have all the Nicholes, Sarah, Chihuahua, all the Eries. Something that's really important for me is connecting with people and with the animals and really promoting excellent husbandry and not just minimum standards of care. And I'm very, very passionate and in love with getting to do this. And this is not my full-time job, so this is truly my passion project.
And how long have you been working with geckos for?
With the crested geckos, this is my third year going into 4. And then with other species, we'll get into a really long time.
So bear with us, guys. I want to show you guys something real quick. This will lead into the beginning of our conversation. Dun, dun, dun.
Nichole exclusive.
Nichole exclusive.
Never before seen footage.
Are you seeing this? Am I always? It should be showing it, right?
Yes.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
I tried to put music to it, and it just didn't. Oh, there it is.
Oh, my baby animals.
Did it stop? Was that it?
No, there should be more. You may have to expand it and then hit play instead of just the play button.
All right, this didn't pan out the way I wanted it to, guys. Oh, here we
go. That's Igor.
That's one of your crested geckos, obviously.
One of my cresties.
Nurse
sharks. Yes, love to boop their snoots. Horses.
Is that your horse?
No, that's actually one I lease.
You show dogs too? What do you got going on here?
I do show dogs. I do all of the animal things.
That's awesome. All right, guys. So as you can see, Nichole has a pretty extensive background with all types of animals here, not just little geckos. How and what are we seeing here? When were you a dolphin trainer, like a real deal SeaWorld dolphin trainer?
Yeah. So I worked at several facilities all across the country, Hawaii, San Diego, South Florida. Some of the species that are in here I've worked with are crocodilians. So I've worked with alligators and crocodiles, dolphins, Atlantic bottlenose dolphins, false killer whales, sharks, stingrays, iguanas, lots of herps, equine. I've worked with an extensive amount of exotic animals. Mostly marine animals.
That is probably the most you have the craziest history with animals, like any guest that I've ever had or can imagine. I mean, that's like that's pretty.
Yeah. Coming from a professional background with animals, that's Allie the alligator. She's the sweetest. Coming from that professional background where I worked in accredited facilities and we were really working with, the government and working with other institutions, veterinarians, research, it does give me a different perspective, I think, on my own home collection and then also how I talk to people about their own animals.
How did you fall into that? How did that whole thing come to be? How did you just wake up one day and be like, I'm going to train dolphins? How does that work? Really?
Kind of. It's a job that nobody does. I know one other dolphin trainer, actually I met her at a show recently, that also has cresties. But I think a lot of people that work with animals, it's kind of what we're called to do. And I literally just said, I'm going to be a dolphin trainer. And everyone said, no, you're not. Nobody does that. And then it took 10 years of my life, but I was. And it's so much more beyond just playing with the animals. Right there, we train alligators to do voluntary blood draws, so we can sit there next to them and voluntarily draw their blood to take care of them. With birds and owls, there's so much you do with them. It's not just playing with the animals. So, and that's something that needs to be. I'm a big advocate of bringing that enrichment, or the word husbandry, which I mentioned, that I should define. That's basically how you care for the animals, how you provide for their food and their enrichment and well-being. That needs to be more perpetuated
Sure.
in the,
For
home
sure, for
geckos.
sure. I
So
agree.
big
So
passion point for me.
how I'm like hooked on this whole animal training thing because it's just like something that I've always, we
Yeah.
all see, but nobody really ever has the opportunity to ask someone that's done it how they did it. What did you have to get, like a degree or
Yeah.
certifications, or you just get a job interning at a zoo? How did this whole thing?
No, it's a lot of work. So you need a bachelor's of science, either in psychology or biology. I went with psychology because even though it's working with animals, you have to know about operant conditioning and classical conditioning and the different types of learning. A lot of like neurochemistry. So you have to have a bachelor's degree at a minimum, and then you have to do internships. And unfortunately, they're generally unpaid. So I did do several unpaid internships, and you're basically picking up the poop, you're 5 a.m. in a freezer preparing the fish, you do all the grunt work, and every facility has a training program you have to go through. So you learn more about how you actually train animals. And it's very science based. It's not just this obscure art form. It's training is very, very based in science. And we're always doing
Is there
research on
anything
it too.
about that that you can maybe
So it's
teach us? Like, what type of science? What do you guys study to? What type of sciences are you studying, or to train these animals? And
mhm.
like, just elaborate a little, because not like
Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, let's because we work with reptiles, we can talk maybe a bit
sure,
about
sure.
conditioning. So, when we talk about how animals interact with the world, it's very different than humans. We have our perspective. And something a lot of people do is anthropomorphism. That's giving like human emotions or thoughts or feelings to the animals. And that is something that can be helpful, but generally it's a big pitfall in behavioral science. I can maybe talk about, I don't know how much you want to nerd out about
I
behavior, but
love
if,
it.
if everyone knows about, okay, great. People have heard of Pavlov's dogs, right? And a lot of people don't know exactly what that means. So what was happening is Pavlov was studying things like gastric juices and saliva in dogs, and his entire study got ruined because the dogs were hearing. Everyone say hi to my husband. He's not a gecko guy, and he's gonna
All
run
right, bud.
away.
Nice to meet you.
He's the spouse that doesn't touch a gecko, but he's very
Sound
supportive.
like my wife.
So Pavlov's experiment was ruined because every time the dogs would hear the door or a bell, they were conditioned. Hi, puppy. They became conditioned to start salivating. So anytime you do something with your own animals, you're conditioning them. If you open, I don't know, you turn on the blender before you feed your geckos, that is something that is a stimulus that they don't know what it is. But over time, with pairing that, they hear the blender, then they get
Sure,
fed, they're going to have
sure.
a response and they're going to have a behavior conditioned. And then you can actually train something with operant conditioning where they're actually like operating in the environment. So the training is very, very science
That's awesome. So I
based.
always notice, like with my animals too, I never knew the science behind it, but I always I could recognize them recognizing patterns and have
Yes,
patterns and things. Like if
exactly.
I'm feeding super worms one night, every one of my 30 chihuahuas will be at the glass. Like, and I'm looking like, how? All right, what's
Right.
going on? Do they recognize the sound of the clip on the
You're
door?
doing
Do they hear
something.
the plastic and the tweezers in the cup? Like, something's happening here that they know this, and
Yes.
it's very, very
Yeah.
interesting. Again, like I said, I wish I went to school for this because I would love to learn about it. I would just love to learn. I can recognize what's happening. I have enough sense to realize that they're recognizing patterns and habits and whatnot, but I just
Yeah.
never knew the real science behind it. But
I love that people are starting to become aware of this because the animals are very perceptive of their environment. If you have a dog with separation anxiety and you pick up your car keys, that's like boom. They're even with the geckos. They're so aware of what's going on and how you act and present
sure,
yourself. And people should be aware of what they do and how it affects their animals. Are you looming over your animals? Are you reaching in? You can condition them that your hand means food. There's so much you can do with
sure,
them to have a better
sure. I
relationship.
think that's it's seriously undervalued, underappreciated that they have this ability,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And there's
Yeah.
certain information in kind of like some of these things you're saying that people don't take into consideration. You know, they just have a flighty crested gecko or a flighty Sarah sonorum. See, me personally, I always know that
Yeah.
it's, you know, you're doing something, right? You're doing something to make that animal flight. Now you're just overall a threat. You're reaching in from
Mm-hmm.
above. You're making, you know, you're doing something that's making that animal freak out. You know, they
Yeah.
don't just drop. Maybe they do, but you know, it's very rare that they drop their tails for nothing. You know, especially majority, if not all, of these New Caledonia species use their tails. Like they, you know, a lot of things.
Right.
They're not. You would think they wouldn't be super, you know, reluctant. They wouldn't want to give their tail up for just anything, right? You got to be a pretty big threat, or something has to scare them to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that people take
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
happening into consideration when they're, you know, handling an animal or they're getting an animal. And I guess like you're saying, they're conditioning it, and they're conditioning them in a negative way by
Right.
doing some of the things
Right.
they're doing. It's what's some advice?
That's why I like the
That's
word
sort of,
conditioning.
it's what do you mean word conditioning? The
Love
word
the word
conditioning, word
conditioning because
conditioning.
it's a great way to
Yes,
explain the phenomenon. And also, you know, when you interact with your animals, their experience, their personality is almost just like all of their experiences they've had. So if every time you feed them you do X, you should expect them maybe to do Y as the outcome, right? Because you're doing the same thing. So I think people need to take a close look at themselves, and there's so many factors you're not aware of. Something in the environment, you know, people say like, "Oh, my dog barks at nothing." Well, no, your dog's barking at a car passing by, or something you didn't hear in the
sure.
environment, or smell. So look outside of even just
You said it
yourself too.
perfectly, though. That's what I was really trying to get at. Is that people need to do a little reflection and look at themselves and what they're doing, and not the animal freaking out. It's probably something you're doing
Yeah,
or have done. What are some tips or advice
right.
you have for, say, new keepers getting an animal, and they, you know, how would you coach someone maybe into conditioning their animal in a healthy, proper way right from the beginning?
Mhm.
What would you suggest to maybe one of your customers or a new keeper in general?
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's people that will go as far as to what we call like choice-based handling, which is where the animal chooses exactly when they want to interact. That with like if you have one pet gecko that you love to death and you have the time, that can be great. But there's going to be times you're going to need to handle your gecko, whether to move them or maybe for a safety reason. There's so many reasons why your gecko has to be comfortable being handled. When you bring your gecko home, don't touch them. Just leave them alone. You know, if I took you and dropped you in the middle of a new city, you'd probably be pretty stressed out. So I tell people, make sure the environment is set up properly. It's not, you know, on the ground. Your dog's going to be in its face every day. The environment, the gecko's actual enclosure needs to be, I'm assuming it's good standard of care. So there's tons of foliage, lots of climbing opportunities, you know, ample ability to find the food. The more clutter you have, the better. The more comfortable the animal will be. If you have a very barren tank because you want to see your gecko, they're going to be stressed out and you're not going to see them. You need them to be comfortable. Don't touch them for 2 weeks. And then you have to, I'd recommend reaching out to someone with experience or watching some videos. I know David from Tiki's Geckos has some good videos. You do need to learn how to handle the geckos. So you want to, these are my recommendations, right? My opinion. They like an open hand, and they like to be elevated high. So if you're holding them down really low, they're probably going to climb up your shirt. And you don't want to get into this situation where you're cupping them and you're freaking out and the gecko's freaking out. Just very calm, quiet room, open hand. What I tell my customers too, if a gecko jumps, that's fine. It's a crested gecko. It's going to jump, let it land, don't move, and then just gently scoop it back up. I think the calmer you can be, the better it's going to go. And with enough repetition, you're going to have an animal that's conditioned and used to being handled. And do expect a period though of a few minutes for them to be a bit more, you know, rambunctious or overstimulated when you first take them
Absolutely,
out.
I agree with you 100%, and that's some great advice for new keepers or anybody really that's just maybe out at a friend's house or handling a gecko, just stay calm and don't freak out. They jump, you don't have to go to the vet every time one jumps and lands on the floor. Unfortunately,
They jump and they're
imagine
fine.
I
Calm and confident.
blows my mind. Blows my
You're
mind.
90%
You
of the
have like
way
a
there.
$3,000 gecko and he just splats on the floor. You're like, score.
Fine. There's a little joke in my friend group, like with Scott, where with my geckos, I think because it comes from handling other animals, I'm very confident. If I need to grab a gecko, flip them upside down, do what I need to do, I'm just gonna go in and do it. And research backs this up. The more hesitant you are and you're putting them through a longer procedure, you're creating so much stress. Just get in there safely, do what you need to do, and be done. Why make this worse, harder than it needs
Sure.
to be?
I agree. And that's one of the, I've always, the choice based handling, right? I've always heard about it, but, and I'm not trying to be controversial or put anybody down because, like you said, if you have time, like I get it. In certain species, it's probably better off with like tokay geckos, but it's not practical for everybody, right? Like if you have to do, say, I have 200 geckos and I have to do welfare checks on all of them, or I'm changing water dishes in all of them.
Right.
I can't sit here and wait for every gecko to decide he wants to come out onto my hand and get checked out.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always work that way.
People forget that they're reptiles too. They don't really have a social drive like other animals might, and a gecko may never want to come out. And that's not a reflection of you as a bad keeper or it's a unfriendly gecko. It's just it's a gecko.
Absolutely. I can't say it any better than that. So let's talk about, since you have a history, and did we bring up that you had a history in veterinary medicine or vet tech, or did we not?
Hey, I'm gonna
Okay,
say
well,
no.
boom, mic drop, guys. Nichole's also a vet tech, or was a vet tech. Are you still working in veterinary medicine, or are you strictly human?
Still do consulting. So in 2010, when I was in California, I became it's called a registered veterinary technician. So that is an RN equivalent. So I've been, oh my gosh, 15 years licensed as we don't say nurse, that's a human, like a protected term, but yeah, the veterinary technician, and then also managed practices for a very long time, including a clinical behavioral specialty practice for dogs and cats. So think like dog and cat psychiatry, essentially. So like where the really bad,
Sure.
where the really bad animals
I'm
went.
sorry, there's probably a really bad human behind it all. But my question with that is, I mean, I feel like with animals, it's like anything else. I mean, if your first impression of a human being is something negative, then it could go, it's like PTSD or something for humans, right? Like, I mean, I guess
Mm-hmm.
some dogs are born a little more aggressive than others, but for a dog to make it to say 3 years old and it's trying to kill everything alive around it, someone either did or did not do something like serious, right? Or dogs. Have you experienced dogs that have just been complete lunatics for no reason?
Mm-hmm. It's a mixed
Really?
bag. I mean, just like humans, how many humans have depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, ADHD? There's something in their brain, right, that needs treatment. There's definitely a large population of
Really? I've
animals
never looked
and
at it like
humans, anything that the experiences, contribute to it. And then just something to point out. I'm gonna call you out. You said for no reason, and people have that thought a lot with animals. Animals don't do anything for no reason. There's always a reason behind what they're doing, whether it's like prey drive, fear, defensive,ness. There is always a reason. We may not be able to easily ascertain that, but there is a root cause
Yeah,
to it
that
somewhere,
was my point.
somewhere in
Really,
there.
is it? They don't just do it for no
Yeah.
reason. There's someone did
Yeah.
something or failed to do something that created that, or something's happening. That's exactly my point. Is that they do not do it. They're not us. They don't do things out of spite. I mean, at least not that I'm aware of.
Right.
So something for every crazy animal. I mean, at least in my experience, and I'm big with dogs too. But I
Mm-hmm.
always, unfortunately, I've always come to this realization or learned that it was human error almost, right? Like something made a dog a certain way. I genuinely don't believe that there's, and I am probably very wrong, but that there's really any really bad dogs, right? Like it's we made these things, right? Like we made dogs, we helped dogs evolve to work side by side next to human. Like it's just not. I mean, see, I'm very untrained, like on the professional side, but it just doesn't seem natural to me that a dog would want to bite its owner, right? Like a dog doesn't just turn around and want to kill its owner. Like it's just it's
Well, this is why this is such a good conversation because it shines such a light on the behavior of animals. And bad is such a loaded word because we were talking earlier about how I have an Alaskan Malamute and you thought I said Malinois. Well, is a Belgian Malinois being bad when it, bites into a target versus a Chihuahua, right? Trying to bite into something else. And, I really think that there's a lot of people, I think what they don't understand with animals and behavior is a lot of it is it is in their head, right? With a human, if you have you have a child with ADHD and you say sit there and be calm, and then they don't accomplish that, are they being bad? I mean, they're kind of a result of their biology, right, and their environment. And animals are very, very much the same way. So if people miss the warning signs, if your dog is on the couch and you go up to pet your dog and it bites you, there's probably so many warning signs you miss. So it's probably doing things that you don't know, like licking its lips, giving you like this big side whale eye, being uncomfortable. There's something that prompted the bite. And then afterwards, the dog is going to show what looks like submission, but it's really appeasement behaviors because the dog, people say that's guilty, right? But the dog doesn't want to bite you. The dog said, I told you in doggy language every way I could, I don't want to be pet, and you still pet me, and then you pushed me to bite you. And it's this is why I like this conversation because there's so much going on behind the scenes with animals and behavior. And I would love to be a big proponent of like, let's take a look at the goings ons. A dog doesn't bite a kid out. One day just bit the kid. Like that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen out of the blue for no
I
reason
agree.
ever.
I agree. I mean, that's awesome that you have this, this schooling, like this real, I mean, this knowledge on this. I mean that's awesome. It's got to help you, and I mean, help so many people. I mean, really, and then this whole world of animals, let alone reptiles. I mean, I think that almost like your skill set is, I mean, probably where you developed it, in zoos with animals like that. I mean, trying to apply those skills to crested geckos is a little much, but still applicable. Like I still get where how it could be applied with just animals
Absolutely.
and reptiles in general. What are maybe what have did you notice? I mean, reptiles in general. Is there any similarities between the alligators and crocodilians that you work with and geckos, or just being that they're reptiles, or are they like two opposite ends of the spectrum?
Yeah. No, there is, except alligators are
See,
smarter.
well, that's something I'm yeah.
Of course, but they respond the same way when it's. I mean, you can talk about the very objective facts. When it's cooler, they're going to all move slower and have a lower food intake, right? Um, Something I find, this is anecdotal, right? This may be a science based. I don't know if it is or not, but the crocodilians definitely recognize people. They know the voices as well. So with one of our alligators, if we would call her name Allie, if you were a newer trainer, she would not be as excited to come over. She might even choose to not come over. She's like, I don't know you. And you saw my husband came by when he came home. My husband doesn't work with the geckos. I do. So I can take a gecko and it's so calm with me. It's so sweet. And I hand it to him and it's like, it's crazy all of a sudden. So there actually is similarities. And a point I wanted to quickly touch on is animals tend to get themselves into situations and then don't know how to get out of the situation. So that the crocodile, there was one I was giving him like big scratchies on his back. He loves having those scratchies, and we know because he makes the sounds that says, "Hey, I really like this." But he may suddenly say, "I don't want people near me anymore." It's the same thing where you're petting a dog, and then maybe after 10 minutes they snap at you. And it's the same thing with the gecko. They might want to be handled. You're handling them, and then they freak out, jump, drop their tail. So animals can, and kids do this. They get I want to go on that roller coaster, and then it's so
Sure.
scary. So sometimes animals get into situations and then they don't know how to get out. And I think we as the adults should help them
Absolutely.
not even maybe be in that in the first place.
I'm still like I'm almost like tongue tied at how experienced you are and the experience that you've had, and I'm like, yeah,
Behavior
I think
episode coming
yeah, that'd be
soon.
awesome. Like I don't want me to sound like I'm not surprised. I know these things, right? Like it's just hard for me without a degree to articulate them to people. But these are things that I know. I know that these geckos can recognize differences. I know they know
Hmm.
me
Yeah.
versus someone else if I have someone here. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard and I almost feel like people, not that it matters, but like people laugh at me when I say they're not as stupid as you think they are. Like I tell people, like I don't treat them like they're little humans and give my bearded dragon a bed to sleep on. Like I don't do that. But
Yeah.
I am extremely confident when in saying that they are not stupid, right? Like it's
No. Not no. I mean, they, they're for their what they are very intelligent. And I even like to joke about how like, oh, you have no brain cells. Like, what are you doing? They but they are what they are. And what they are is a living animal that's capable of learning and doing behaviors
absolutely,
and, you know, interacting with you,
absolutely.
and just knowing why they do what they do will give you
Their
such an
lives
edge.
in the wild, right? And even though they've been in captivity for a long time, in evolution's eye, it's a very short period of time that they've been in captivity versus the time they spent in the
Mhm.
wild. These animals have evolved over millions of years to survive, right? To live, to do few things
Right.
in there, to eat, to reproduce, to seek heat, water. There's certain things that they just naturally do, right? And they've been doing it for a long time.
Yes.
How stupid could you
Right.
be if you have lived on this planet long enough to make it this long, right? Like, how stupid could they be? Like, take most humans and drop them off in the woods, you're done for, right? Like, they're done for. These animals
Exactly.
know what to do, and I get it. It's certain instinct, natural instinct, or whatnot, but it's it's still just it almost offends me, like when I hear people say, oh, they're stupid animals, they're stupid, they're such a stupid animal. It's like that animal's probably processing so much more than you ever could, right? Like the second somebody walks in the room, it's
Yeah.
just in a different way. It's processing
It's a
your
different way.
reality in a
Exactly.
totally different manner than you are, and it's
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
just animals in general.
That sums it up perfectly.
So when you were in veterinary medicine, and I'm like, again, I'm like having brain farts because my mind's going in a million different directions. When you were in veterinary, when you were doing the veterinary stuff, did you come across a lot of New Caledonian species or reptiles in general? Did you really?
No. I worked at several general practices where we would maybe get we'd probably get less than 10 reptiles a year, and almost all of them were either leopard geckos, bearded dragons, or ball pythons. And it was almost always one of two or three things. It was like a shedding issue, long-term malnutrition or a diet issue, or like a heating, lighting, metabolic bone disease, one of those couple of things. And we generally would refer them to where I've worked, which is mainly Southern California and South Florida. There are specialists, but I mean, we in veterinary school do train on exotics and horses, everything, but I mean, you could kill a gecko with a drug that would be safe for anything else that exists. So we did not see a lot of reptiles. All of my reptile experience comes from working in zoos, and that's mainly with crocodilians. We had iguanas, some snakes, species like that, but it is very different working with exotics, especially how you handle them. I mean, you can kill them from stress, from untrained technicians. I mean,
What
it's a
are
concern.
well, at
Yeah.
least with your background? Then you have a very unique background, very unique situation and perspective on the hobby as a whole. What are some things that you see that you may see or maybe see more often than you'd like to that is a hobby we should change or fix or correct? Is there from knowing animals the way you do on a
Mhm.
scientific level, is there anything that you think
Yeah.
and no, I'm not trying to point anybody out or anything like that, but is there anything that you think as a
Yeah.
whole we should maybe reevaluate, like the no UVB thing, or mixed diets? I mean, stuff like that along those lines. Is there anything that you think that maybe we could do a lot
Mhm.
better?
Big a big proponent of science-based, and unfortunately, this is not an area that gets a lot of funding, and so we don't have a lot of good science. I do work with that are board certified in exotics, and I'm working with them to try to get some papers written. I'm actually this year authoring a
Really?
few papers that will be
That's awesome.
hopefully published. One of those is looking at UVB. Another one is looking at diet and growth rates. So there are some of us that are really trying to get
Awesome.
some good research, because you can talk to someone in Florida, Colorado, and California, and let's talk about
Sure.
humidity. And all three of them are going to give you
Sure.
a different answer, right? In South Florida, I don't need to spray very often because it's already so humid. If you're in Colorado, you might have to spray twice a day. So it's so hard to say, like, what do we as a hobby need to do better? Because I think geckos in general are seen, crested geckos, leopard geckos. I think they're seen as you and I actually talked about this a little bit, like beginner pets, right? And just because an animal is hardy and can withstand subpar care doesn't mean that they should
Absolutely.
have subpar care. Like, just because a gecko can live in literally a 6 gallon tub its entire life doesn't necessarily
I
mean like
agree.
it should,
I
right?
agree.
Um, on a big scale with breeding, of course, we may be keeping babies that are going to be sold in, maybe like a less than desirable environment. But I think do what you can, and accept. I think the big thing is accepting help from each other. So if you have a question, go to the experts. Currently the experts are veterinarians, which is basically non-existent in our industry, unfortunately, or people with a lot of experience, and get a lot of answers from a lot of people with experience. So if you don't know how you should keep your humidity, ask 10 breeders. I think we need to start accepting some criticism, which is constructive, and also posting out there when we have maybe failures or personal things that don't go right. On Crystal's podcast, I talked about my first year. I had a lot of baby shedding issues because I was overspraying, because I was spraying every day, and I'm in South Florida, and I had a lot of them that couldn't dry out properly and
Sure.
shed, and it was a nightmare. I was like, every night I was talking to like Anthony Caponetto on the phone, buying products and de-shedding babies. It was a nightmare. And now anytime I talk to someone new buying geckos, I'm like, hey, we need to take 5 minutes to talk about humidity, especially if you
That's
live in
totally
Florida. So
recognized.
we need to be open to be
Sure.
nice to each other and share
Absolutely.
information. That's what I would
Absolutely.
change.
Not for nothing, but the other podcast I do with my buddy Jason, we do the Gecko Exchange podcast, and we talk to gecko breeders of like all
Yeah.
species, and we talk to gecko breeders from around the world. And the one topic we always wind up on is using the fact we should always try to use nature as our proxy, right? For that very reason.
Hmm.
Nature, the natural environment of an animal, can be achieved differently all over the world, right? Like, but that's the goal. The goal is to
Yeah.
recreate the best temperature, humidity combination of for that animal, where that animal comes from in the wild. Now, like you said, that varies depending on where you are. Arizona, California, New York, it all
Yeah.
changes. So there really can be no one set way, right? It wouldn't work. What I do in
Yeah.
Connecticut, my buddy Jason cannot do in Arizona. Like, it absolutely not work.
Yeah.
And it's cool that you recognize that, because a lot of people like listen to us and they say, well, what do you mean? I mean, I talked to so and so, and he's been doing this for 20 years, and he said do it this way.
He sprays his
Like,
geckos every
that's
day,
cool, but do
every
you live
night.
next door to him? Do you live near him? You don't. So your
Yeah.
environment is different.
If I spray my geckos every night, they won't shed and they'll die. Like, that is the hard truth of it. I'm in Florida. The humidity in my house is upwards of 60% at any moment.
76 of mine.
Like, you really need to take into account parameters and accurately measure those parameters. Don't get a little circular rinky dink, hygrometer. Go get a cheap Govee hygrometer
Love it.
thermometer on Amazon, stick it in your tank, what is your humidity? What is the percentage? And then use that to work with experts. It's not a one size fits all, and that's what's hard. Like, oh, how often do I feed it? Some of that stuff, okay, it's easy, but how often do I spray them? Oh my god, tell me
Absolutely.
about your whole life, and
So
then
how do you
I'll tell
think we
you.
correct something like that? Because I can't agree with you more. There is no, like you said, there is no one size fits all in this hobby. This is one hobby in general, in particular, rather, that there is no one right way to really do anything, right? Like feeding depends on the temperatures of your rooms. I mean, animals that are in Florida are probably going
Yeah,
to eat more than animals kept in Maine. I mean, like
yeah,
the
yeah.
humidities, the temperatures, the feeding. How do you think we fix all that? What I mean, I know you said we
Hmm.
should probably, ask as many people as possible, which is I'm agreeing with you. Ask as many people and take the information, a little bit of information from all of them and see what works best for you. But
Yeah.
what would how do you fix this for someone new? Like, say someone just goes to the pet store, and you know what else? I'm spinning off, but
Hmm.
Petco, right?
Pet stores.
Petco, their care guide. If you were to look at their care guide, because I got into this like everybody else did. I was taking my kid to a show. I was looking for frogs and other
Yeah.
things to put in terrariums, and I got sidetracked by this
Like the
little diva because someone decided to tell her they're called eyelash geckos. So now I have to get an eyelash gecko because this little cheerleader needed long story, whatever is what it is. Now I got 200 of the damn things, and she doesn't have one. She doesn't have one. So it's my point is that do you go to these big box pet stores, and some of them are in Connecticut and in Florida. You get the same care sheet in either one of them.
right.
So for someone that's coming into the hobby new that may not have, I guess it's hard to answer because we wouldn't really have any way to access, get a hold of them either. But say someone comes into the hobby, how do you
No,
help
I,
them?
I don't think it's that hard. I Fun fact, when I was in high school, I was actually a shift supervisor at PetSmart. This was like 2009. With the I don't even remember whatever the pet care was back then, back in the day. Sorry, not be controversial, but a lot of the recommendations are pushed by the brands. So there's a reason why you see crest or leopard geckos on reptile carpet because it sells well and they won't die as fast, right? Because the recommendations and the care guides at these companies are driven by brands making products and dumbing it down to like the most like easiest
It
denominator to
should be
basically not
illegal.
kill the animal so the customer you make no money. You make no money on the animal itself. It's everything else that you make the money on. So I'm working with Dr. Bitter, who is a board certified veterinarian, works with exotics. She's also doing a UVB paper with leopard geckos, and we're working on creating a care guides.
That is
And I
awesome.
think the care guides, for example, mine needs updating, but what it says is your humidity should be, let's say, 70% in the evening, and it should dry out to 40 to 50% before spraying again. Anybody can do that. Anybody can look at a hygrometer and go, okay, it's 40%. I can spray. And then go back later and say, okay,
Valid
it's at
point.
65. I don't spray. I think we need to set parameters,
Oh,
and then anybody with the brain could follow that parameter. That's my
that's
goal for the
awesome. I really,
future.
now that you mentioned it, I don't know why after all these years I haven't looked at it that way. But I mean, that's like a super simple way of doing it, right? Just if you have a set parameters, that's all you got to do. I'm always looking at like
Yeah.
iNaturalist and giving myself what it's doing at what time of year and trying to control a room like it's a part of the jungle. And I mean, really, all I got to do is just
You're on
explain
hard
it. Well,
mode.
the problem isn't that I don't that I not that I don't understand it that way. It's when I try to explain to other people, right? Like,
It's so tough. And it's a skill that because I worked with the public and had to, you get asked the craziest questions when you work with the public with animals. And also because I literally went to school for this, it's learning to articulate it where people understand it. That is so hard because it's like it's all up here and you have to get it
story of my
out
life.
out there.
All right, but that's a very, very cool way, people. So forget everything that I'm always trying to say about nature and what the jungle's doing. Honestly, just forget what I've been saying and just look at it. Look at a set of parameters. You don't need to worry about what I'm telling you New Caledonia does if you just look at two numbers. The highs and the lows, and stay in between these two things. I mean, it's really you don't have to, in theory, look at the time of year it is, because I was trying to personally work on a spreadsheet that gave annual
Ooh, I
annual
love a good spreadsheet.
averages per months of the year, if that makes any sense. And then with
Hmm.
that, the bugs that were likely to be out during this time and what was.
Yeah, if it's a more fruit eating time of year, a
Yeah,
more insect heavy time of year, and you can do that. I mean, if you have the time and mental capacity to do that, my only I love to be a kind of a I'm not a contrarian, but I like to kind of poke in a little bit. There's this big push to feed raw diets to dogs and do all these things with dogs because they're this and that. And your dog at home, your gecko at home, is not living in New Caledonia, is not living out in the wild being a wolf. And so I think that there's better care that can be done. For example, if you have a timer for your lights, yeah, change the light, make it like shorter at this time of year, more light at this time of year, warmer at that time of year. I think that's great. It's enriching for the animal, it's natural for the animals. But I think if you are the kind of person where maybe you don't have the mental ability to do that, don't rip yourself apart because you're like, oh, I need to have a 3 hour shorter day in the winter. I'm not doing that. I'm abusing my
absolutely,
gecko.
absolutely. I agree. I just personally, I'm like one of these people. I just always, I don't even know how to explain it, but I always like trying to overanalyze, not overanalyze, but I'm always worried if I'm doing enough. Like I don't even know how to explain it. But
Yeah, no,
it's
you care so much and you want them to have the best possible life, the most natural life, the longest
that's
life.
for sure.
I mean,
That's
it's
for
natural
sure.
for us animal lovers.
It's just like I see animals, and again, I'm not judging anybody. I get there's a reason, and I've had geckos in hospital bins on paper towels too. But when I see people that have a
Yeah.
collection and think that that's it for their animal, like it kind of drives me nuts. Like that shouldn't be your end game, right? Like a wall full of 6 quart containers and paper
Yeah.
towels, like that's the end of it. That's the end of it. Like I love the
Yeah.
animals, and basically what I was getting into with the whole jungle and all that stuff. My reason for all that is they're just a part of what I love, right? It's the whole rainforest,
Yeah.
it's the microfauna, it's the temperature, the climate, the ocean around it, what's living in it, what makes
Yeah.
up the
Yeah.
substrate, and there's so much to these enclosures I build. There's so much more than just the
Yes.
animal, and I feel like you're talking about,
The
yeah,
nerdiness of it.
that's what's really.
It's not just like a Pangea plant with paper
Which
towels.
again, I hate
And
to judge. I really do, because if that's what brings someone into the hobby, then God bless them. Amen. Right? Most people will evolve, right? Like you have, since you've been in the hobby. I have. Like
Mhm.
I look back now at some of the
Yeah.
things I did when I
Yeah.
came into this, and I'm like, glad I never showed anybody. Like, or I'm glad nobody ever saw how I was doing this. I'd get ripped apart, or
Yeah. You
or
do what you
maybe
can with
someone
what
would
you
have
have.
taught me the right way or something. Who knows? But point is that most people, some people go backwards, but I feel like a lot of people, at least the ones that I've been able and I've had the privilege of mentoring, have evolved. They may not have went fully
Yeah.
bioactive with full plants. They may have had like a dirt topsoil substrate and some fake plants, and then evolved to real plants, and then changed it up, put drainage
Hmm.
layers and full spectrum and UVB lights, and it's a lot of people will evolve if they're given the information, the opportunity to. So I genuinely, like you said, I genuinely believe that if you have an animal, you probably care about it, and you probably want it to have the best
Yeah.
life possible, right? Like even
Right.
people that keep their animals on paper towels, a lot of them will say, I got them on paper towel because I'm worried about impaction. Now, in my eyes, you're probably worse off with them swallowing a mouthful of paper towel than they are a little bit of dirt. But I get they have the best of intentions, right? Like they meant to
Yeah.
do well.
I think it's a really hard topic because these animals can survive in very minimal conditions. And there's a difference between, like, not name dropping it, but there's a difference between someone that's like a huge name in the hobby with thousands of animals that has bins and they're selling and they're like putting their face out and they're active in the community and they're helping versus, somebody that's just in for the
Sure,
cash grab,
sure.
right? And like for me personally, a lot of my background comes from worrying about diseases and sterility. So I have a set of bioactives. They're semi-bioactive. I'm not good at keeping anything except a snake plant alive. And then I have a lot that are on. I don't like paper towel because it gets moldy and they can get upper respiratory infections. That's my bone to pick with paper towel and egg crate. But I like brown craft paper,
I've seen other
especially for
people use it,
babies.
sure.
It doesn't get moldy. It has texture. And I also make sure anything I have for babies is arboreal, actually arboreal. They have space to climb. So it's such a nuanced conversation. I think people truly have good intentions and they do what they can. Um, my one kind of comment would be think about what the animal needs, not what you need. And this kind of goes back to maybe people that don't like seeing animals in zoos. If what you see, maybe if it makes you feel uncomfortable, the animal may not be perceiving that. The animal may be perfectly fine and cared for. So you can have somebody with a bioactive and the gecko's cared for incorrectly, or somebody with just paper towel and a plant and the gecko's cared for properly. And so that's where I think care sheets and stuff should move towards parameters. And I almost think they should be like a tiered type of situation because you can keep a single adult gecko in a 12, 12, 18. Is it enough ample space to move around? I would argue I don't love that. But if if somebody, if it's the difference between somebody having a gecko and caring about animals and being willing to like contribute to animal welfare versus, I think if we tell everyone, okay, you need a 24, 24, 36 high to have a single gecko, you create this
Yes.
barrier of entry. And so it's such a hard, nuanced conversation. I think that people need to do the best with what they can afford and have. And that's why I'm downscaling right now and I haven't been very active online. I did the same thing every new breeder does, got too many random geckos, read too many random things, and like what is this? We need to take a hard look at ourselves. Like I'm not producing things last year that some stuff I was proud of, but some stuff I wasn't proud of. And then when you have a ton of people doing that, it's bad for everyone. It lowers like the value, the price. It's bad for all of us. So I'm in the process of kind of scaling back so I can increase the care, better care for my animals, and then produce nicer animals
Sure.
too.
I commend you on that. And for anyone out there that's watching and listening, guys, don't feel bad because I've yet to speak to anyone that hasn't done this, right? Like I wish there was an answer or a
Yeah,
solution or
everyone
a
does
way that we
it.
could avoid it. And the crazy part is like when we all got into geckos, I hate to speak for everybody, but I always see the advice given out, like when people are getting into geckos, like I'm getting into geckos. What should I do? Should I get this? Should I buy this? Should I do this? And people always be like, don't buy that. If you want to breed geckos, buy investment quality geckos and blah, 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 blah. When
Yeah.
I first got into geckos, it used to offend me when I'd see people say that. Well, why are you telling them to not do it? Let them, if they want to learn and they want to breed, let them breed, let them breed. In hindsight, I look back and it's like, yeah, if anyone were to listen to that and you should have taken the advice. If you're going to breed geckos, pick a path, pick something that you want to work with, not just something
Yeah.
you like, because odds are if you like
Right.
one of them, you're going to like them all. And we all do that. We just
Yeah.
start buying random things, and then a year goes by, 2 year goes by, and we got 150 geckos, and none of them make great pairs with each other. Like, then you're producing animals you're not proud of, and then
Yeah.
where do those animals go? And it's an unfortunate chain of events that I feel happens to a lot of people, right?
It does, and that's why I'm also vocal about that. And there's a few people that I are best friends of mine. Hopefully, will soon be on your podcast because they're very new. And I think you interviewing somebody brand new will be like, there's so many new people that like, what are you going through? And they really listened to my advice of like, don't just start buying geckos. And they would text me pictures of geckos. And now they have a really small collection of like 30, and they're so nice. And like so we need to own up to like
Yes,
mistakes we've made, help guide the
yes,
new people because I got in like in the COVID group, which those people have all now
for
dumped
sure.
everything, right? And kind of screwed a lot of us over, and all we're doing is contributing more to this like explosion of however many tens of thousands of geckos, and it negatively affects
Sure
all of
does.
us. And it negatively affects the geckos because they're probably going to subpar living conditions
I would
too.
agree with you, but I feel that the hobby is, not that my opinion matters, but I feel like we're on a good trajectory here. Like I think that like people have the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
mindset that you do. Refine your collections, start breeding with a purpose, with intention, and breeding healthier animals, and it's an overall better process. Less animals, you can provide more care to them. You're working with less genes or you know specific lines or something. You're going to make better animals. It's
Right.
not about just making
Yeah.
mass amounts and selling them to whoever will buy them. And I
Right.
feel like the hobby as a whole is doing that right now. The people that made it through the COVID thing, that did buy a bunch of animals, I feel like that's again kind of like what's happening right now is people are trimming the extra weight. They're getting rid of things that they don't really enjoy. I'm always, I hate to say it, it sounds so terrible, but I'm literally going through it myself right now. I bred Dalmatians forever. I took animals with 2 spots and
Hmm.
bred them and turned them into lines of animals where everyone is hatching with covered in spots. But I generally didn't have a passion for it anymore. I kind of felt bad, and I'm like, I really
Yeah.
love these animals, but I feel that someone else would probably love them more, right? So
Yeah.
as much as I admire Dalmatians and I like them, I chose that I will no, I'm no longer going to be working with them. So I gave them to some select people that are doing some cool things with Dalmatians, still have the passion for the Dalmatians, and
Mhm.
that's that. But I think it's normal. I think it's normal. I wish we could eliminate it altogether, right? Like you're saying, it's
It's
but how do you
hard,
how do
especially the pet, the reptile show people. But I do really commend you for saying like Dalmatians weren't a passion of mine anymore because too many people are afraid to admit like if they've maybe lost their spark for something or they're just like there's been times I've been burned out and like I'm just trying to get through feedings or whatever it is. And I think that's something that people need to recognize like there's going to be times where maybe it's like it's harder or you have other things happening in your life or tragedy strikes and then you still have to come home and take care of geckos and maybe you love your geckos but that week you're exhausted, you don't want to deal with feeding out crickets or whatever it is, and it's it's not a bad thing to reach out for help and
what's some advice that you have
get
if
everybody goes
when
through
you
that too.
talk about burnout, and we've all been through. We've all been in it, been in a situation or been through a time where we just didn't feel like doing what we're obligated to do. What are some things that you have a background? You said right in like psychology or something like this, to like humans. What would your
Yeah. More
behavior? What
behavior,
would you
my bread and
suggest
butter.
someone to do in a situation like that?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is kind of getting your life under control. But concrete things I would say is set up your day. Let's say you're overwhelmed or you're just you don't. We've all had that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I just want to lay down and watch TV, but I have to feed the geckos tonight. Like, really, don't push that off. I know people that will push that off, and then you push it off a day, and then it's 2 days. And I've had people confide in me they've had animals die from this, you know, and you really need to have, I would say, two things like a structured list, and then you need to reward yourself. Treat yourself like one of the animals. If you're your reward is getting to watch like 90 Day Fiance, you don't get to watch that show until you've done you've done your gecko chores for the day. Or if you get up early and do it in the morning so it's not looming over you till the afternoon. Find whatever is your way to get it done and cut back on the things that are not making you happy. If you're not happy with your own life, you're not fulfilled, you're not going to have fun with your hobby.
Makes perfect sense. I constantly mention that on these podcasts. Is you cannot be the best. You can't be someone's best if you're not the best for you, right? Like there's just you're not selfish
Yeah, yeah,
for putting yourself first. You have to be the best you in
yeah.
order to be the best you can be for anybody else. Like you have to, and the sad part, like you said, unfortunately, people losing animals due to, these burnout periods. I mean, so we take this upon
Mm-hmm. It
ourselves.
happens way more
I
than
can
people think.
imagine, and that's it's kind of actually heartbreaking. But these are living things that depend on us. It didn't I don't want to get all corny and
Yeah.
sound like some weird hippie, but they didn't choose to come live in our houses, right? Like we chose to bring them
Yeah.
here. We chose and gave our word that we were going to take care of these things. Like it's a, and
Right.
I hate talking about it because I get to come off like a dictator, and that's the last thing I want to sound like. But it's like they're
No.
living creatures, right? We don't have you don't have the option to neglect them. It's not an option. You take care of them. If you're going to neglect anything, you neglect yourself. But those
Hmm.
animals get taken care of, right? Like it's or get rid of.
Right. And that's my mindset too. I mean, and for me, that's why also for people will notice for several months I've been a lot like off of social media. It's because I get so many inquiries and I love talking to people. And last year around the holidays, I had a huge issue where like my website went down, my all of my emails. I paid a service to kind of aggregate a lot of my stuff, and it all went down. I couldn't get messages, my contact forms weren't working, my email wasn't working. It was so mentally hard on me to feel like people like wanted to talk to me or needed my help and I just wasn't accessible. And then I'm also dealing with a lot just with taking care of helping family. And so that's why I don't want to pretend, oh, everything's fine, because sometimes there's periods in your life where things aren't fine. And you do have to step back. And I don't think there's any shame in that. I need to kind of step back, handle my business, take care of my animals. The people that love me are still going to be here. Like don't just push through until you're getting 3 hours of sleep every night and you're miserable. It's not good
Oh,
for you or
it's
the
not.
animals. It's
That's what we're
not.
saying. Both guys, anybody out there that's listening to maybe going through a burnout too, it is okay. We don't like to see people getting rid of animals because they don't have time, but that's reality, right? Maybe your life has changed and you got a new job, you have a child, you just got married, you're going through something in life. If the animal's well
Yeah.
being is going to potentially be jeopardized, get rid of them. Give them to someone that you can, that can take care of, that has the time. If you don't have
Yeah.
a passion for something that you used to, it's okay. Don't be embarrassed. Don't be shy about it. You have to take care of
Yeah.
yourself. And if it's not bringing you joy, then on the contrary, bringing you misery, you're not doing anybody any favors by keeping those animals. It's
Right. You're not going to have any fulfillment either. So I think, I like this. I like this episode. We're having like the the therapy session for
well, I
hopefully
mean,
people
not for nothing, but a
listening.
lot of people. I mean, it's something that needs to be talked about. In all actuality, a lot of people find these as their savior, right? Like these, this is my mental health escape from life. Like I'm a
Yeah.
foreman for a construction company. I deal with ignorance all day. I deal with incompetence all day. I
Mm.
home deliveries, everything goes wrong all day, right? Like when I come home, I got this. This is my happy place.
Yeah.
But that's me. It's not like that for everybody. We can't
Yeah.
judge, right? Like, and that's one thing. If not that I'm in this interview, but if there's anything I could do in this hobby, it'd be stop judging people, right? Help people stop judging people. Don't judge people for their situation because you're not in their shoes, right? Help them. If someone's going through some stuff, you don't need to bash people. Lift them up, man. Lift them up. Help them out. Be a good community member, man. We're all human. We all have terrible
Right.
days and we all have great days. It's
Yeah.
life,
That's why I stay off like the Facebook
it's
groups and
unfortunate.
this and that. Like I you just, as someone with also hundreds of geckos and a lot of experience with like professionally and personally, and you see the advice being given there and oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. So if I see that, it's like a quick private message like, hey, here's my care guide, here's my recommendation.
It's the best way to
There's people that are always going to lean on the low end of the spectrum, and then there's a PETA people.
sure.
So
That's a great way to do it too. And I don't know why I never thought about it that way because I hate to say it because I'm really not a confrontational person, but I always like get into debates or arguments in those groups. So much so to the point where I've just like taken myself out of all of them. But I really, in all actuality, should have
yeah, I
just
hate it.
sent them a message like, you probably don't want to listen to that and just
I
read
message
this. Like it's
people,
a brilliant way to
even
do
if
it.
it's like ball pythons or something. Like I send them to like the reptile lighting group on
It's
Facebook,
got
like
to
for their
drive
bearded
you up the
dragons. I'm
wall.
like, hey, go to this group that actually knows
It's
science.
got to drive you nuts.
Like, don't listen to Joe Schmo on Facebook.
So we mentioned lighting a couple times, and I'm super curious. Now, I use UVB on my
Mhm.
breeding everything, lychees, chihuahuas, I
Me
do,
too.
but I get that some people don't. And I've run little experiments, believe it or not, and I've had similar animals and similar setups with different lighting, and personally, I've noticed some differences. But for someone with your background and your, you know, I guess elevated ability to observe certain things and little, you know,
Oh,
what
that's so
have
sweet.
you
I don't know
noticed
about that.
anything? Have you noticed any significant differences using lighting versus no lighting in a hobby that is totally okay with not using UVB lighting for these reptiles?
Mhm. So yes, this is something that I'm actually, I guess, breaking news. That's one of the papers
Cool.
that I'm
I
working
love
on is like fertility and egg laying with crested geckos with and without UVB. So that probably will be at least a year until there's really like publication or movement on that. But that is something that I'm doing with probably like 60 animals, like a lot, like a large enough group that I think it'll be good. Um, Anecdotally, in my opinion, yes, I do see better egg quality, shells, laying, females keeping weight, males keeping weight with UVB. The problem is, like, we're talking calculus when people don't know how to do addition. People don't even understand what UVB is. People don't know how to measure it. People don't know what a T5 is. Like, that's something that is hard. I mean, can a human live without going outside and survive on vitamin D supplementation? Yeah.
it. Oh,
Yeah. Crested geckos can survive without UVB. Like, factually, that is correct. However, can I provide adequate UVB to 200 hatchlings? No, it's not feasible for me. My adult breeders, absolutely. Um, if someone doesn't know anything about UVB, I would rather them not have it than cook their gecko personally. Crested geckos, their UVI is very low. So if you really
can
want to get
you
into it, the only
what do you shoot
Facebook group
for?
I like. Sorry, what was
Just
that?
to not to interrupt, but what do you shoot for UVI with your animals?
I use an
Yeah, me
actual
too.
solar
Well,
meter.
what are you
So
shooting for?
I actually measure and make sure that they're in the right Ferguson zone. So I'm a big fan of the I like the Arcadia. The only two brands I will use is Arcadia and then the Reptisun. Anything else is not tested enough to prove that it works.
I was going to
If you
say,
have if you do not have Reptisun or Arcadia, if you went on Amazon and bought Reptile
I
Basics or
thought you were
whatever,
kill
if you have coils, check
and a
your
rack of
enclosures.
them. I was just say it's all I use to rep these sons. Where the hell are
Yeah,
they?
good. I
Oh, there
applaud
they
you. I
are.
applaud
A
you.
whole rack of them.
Thank you. Those are the only ones that in testing are proven to have consistent output. Um, the other thing is people don't understand, like, okay, let's say you want a UVI of like I don't know, like 2.0 and then a gradient. Depending on the brand of cage you have, there's mesh. Mesh is going to block that. So if you have the PetSmart brand enclosure, the mesh is dense. It's going to block 80% of your UVB versus if you mount it inside the enclosure. Versus if you use those coil bulbs, those are horrible. If you have like a linear bulb, so there's like, this is such a long
Oh, it's a good
conversation,
one, and
but
it's to never be had.
ideally
And
you
I'm
want to
always
have,
telling people these things we need.
yes,
You have no idea how valuable this tool is.
if you use UVB, you have to spend like $200 and get a solar meter. You have to. My animals, again, anecdotally, I don't know, between 50 to 100 breeders produce better under low UVB. That's my opinion. It's not hard to provide. I mean, you can buy a shade dweller, 7%, mount it a little bit high. The animals will naturally bask or not. It is much more nuanced than this, but in my opinion, yes, the breeders especially benefit from that, especially egg laying females, like
I
immensely.
agree 100%. And I hate that it has to be controversial, right? Like, not that it's controversial, but I don't think that we should talk about UVB and people. I don't think people should get offended, right? Like, no one's saying that anyone should be upset if you don't use UVB. It's just simply one of those things where there may be a better way, right? Like, I've done the little micro experiments, and like I said, ran breeding pairs with UVB versus without them. I am
Yeah.
not trained in any type of animal science whatsoever, and I can clearly see the difference in so many.
The
Yeah,
egg
it's like
quality.
a the
When you look at an egg, you can see night
it's
and day.
literally it's they're like two different worlds almost. I mean the they're beautiful eggs. Like they come out nice and plump, and the calcium on them. I mean, it
Yeah.
looks like a mini
White,
chicken egg.
well calcified.
Some of the others, when
Yeah.
they don't, you'll see
You
like the
know,
eggs have little spots on them. They still hatch, but you can see where the calcium almost gets thin sometimes in some places, or like there's just little
exactly. Yes. Yes.
imperfections that go away once you introduce UVB. You know,
They do. And kind of on that same tangent, people, if you're breeding geckos, you need to know how to check calcium sacs in your gecko's mouth and how to do that safely and how to handle them safely. And you need to understand like what is calcium and what is phosphorus and
why
how
don't
do
you
they
teach us,
interact.
Nicole?
And if you're
Why don't you teach us real
what?
quick, Nicole?
Oh my god. I don't know. We need an episode that's just labeled like science, like boring science with Nichole. So people that want that
That's interesting. That's super
can
cool.
like
People
watch
don't
it
talk
because
about it enough. I've never
we'll
had
nerd
one
out
guest
about
come
it.
on here, and I'm not bashing anybody. I love all you guys. Not saying nothing. But nobody's ever suggested checking their animals' calcium sacks. When do you check them? What are you looking for? How much calcium are you supplementing? Are you giving them multivitamin? People,
Yeah.
maybe it's my fault and I haven't steered the conversation in that direction. But no one's
I'm just
ever
a
talked
nerd for
about it.
this because it's something that if you have tons of geckos, you don't have to do. They'll probably be laying eggs. Yeah, fine. But then you're also going to have a higher chance of females being egg bound, not producing healthy eggs. Calcium crashes. So, kind of to start the conversation, a lot of us are feeding it mostly Repashy, Pangea, whatever your diet of choice is, right? If you add too much powdered calcium to that, calcium will reduce nutrient absorption. I'll say that again. If you add too much calcium, it will reduce their ability to absorb the nutrients in the food. So people will add like calcium without D3 into their Pangea and mix it up, and you will have animals with malnutrition because the calcium blocks absorption of the diet. Now, as long as you're doing a small amount, maybe once a week, every other week, it's probably okay. But calcium really should be delivered separate from a feeding.
Using calcium
So
licks or
that
using like a calcium lick, like a dish with just powder.
with crested geckos, I don't do either. The only supplementation of calcium I do is with live
Wow.
insects, of course, dusting them, and then your insects have to be gut loaded with calcium products, please. If you take one thing away, the other thing is the brand specifically, like Bug Delight. They have a liquid calcium that is excellent if you need to add supplemental calcium. But generally, you want to be careful adding powder calcium. I think 1 to 2%, like weight by gram weight of calcium can be added safely like once a week. So if you have a small collection and you're putting in like a pinch of calcium powder every feeding, your geckos are literally not absorbing the nutrients properly from their food.
I'm going to spill the beans here real quick on this, and I don't think I've ever told anybody. There's a couple people that know me know. I killed a gecko, giving him too much calcium. I had a
Yeah,
Eurocladus
happens.
sicerae, the mossy leaf tail ones. I don't know how people say it. Sicerae. I
Yeah.
have a new one now, but she was a female, and she was coming up of age, and I thought that I could give her small amounts of vitamin D with D3 in it, calcium with D3 in it, and use a UVB. I thought that I was one upping what was happening. I mean, like every other week, I'd give her a little bit.
Mm.
She developed calcium sacs that were so big they like fused to her like shoulder, all tight. It looked like a gout almost, but there was like a
Yeah.
different name for it. I want to talk to a whole bunch of people, but to make a long story short and a short story shorter, I killed a gecko by giving her too much hypervitaminosis or something. I gave her too much calcium and killed
Mm-hmm.
arguably one of my favorite freaking animals, man. I learned a very hard lesson, and
Yeah.
all because of something I should have not been so naive about. I should have read more. I just assumed it was a gecko, and everything's like New Caledonian geckos, and I just very ignorant, very
Yeah.
ignorant. But
Well, I mean, we all make mistakes, whether people will admit it or not. Everybody has done something that's probably, if you have enough animals, you've made them like led to an animal's either suffering or everybody has done it. So I hope you don't like
not
beat
anymore.
yourself
Now I
up
just
too
make sure
hard.
that this one I have a new female that I don't even give her calcium anymore. I don't give her calcium. I just give her very well fed feeders, right? Like my crickets, I raise
Yeah.
all my own crickets. I feed them nothing but organic foods and greens, and she's fine. Like she's like a beautiful specimen. And there's that. Ironically, it's happened to a lot of people. As rare as it is, it's not an uncommon thing. The hypervitaminosis with leaf
It's not
tails.
it's not
It,
that rare.
it's
Because people think, what people I think don't understand is reptiles have a completely different metabolism than a mammal. And even if you have like, I take things back to dogs because people know dogs. If you have a 5 pound chihuahua and you give them a hamburger patty, that is like you yourself eating like a 70-ounce
yeah,
steak,
right.
right? So if you have a gecko and you give them like a little pinch of calcium, I mean that's like you taking 50 calcium pills maybe, right? And even supplements, they're not necessarily benign. With certain species you have to be careful with the vitamin A. There's so much that goes into it, which is why uh, maybe I'm in the minority, but I see all these people now making these specialty foods and all this crap. And it worries me because we saw that in the pet food industry and lots of animals died, dogs and cats, because the marketing is outpacing the
Yes.
science. It's just it's a,
That you
it's,
could, that's
it's a
a very
huge
true fact.
concern.
They are absolutely right. It's people are. Can't tell you how many new products like you've seen. I've seen 5, 6 new foods out. I haven't seen one piece of research or anything. Anything about
Yeah.
gecko digestion or anything. I just haven't seen anything. But new products are popping up. I mean, who's doing the research? Who's studying? Who's determined that what was out there isn't good? I mean, who's saying that it's out there is good? I mean, I
And I don't want to knock
think there
anyone's
should be more
brand. Like I know
science.
people that have done this. It's just for me, I come from I remember the whole like every dog needs to eat grain free and then we found out later about all these cardiac conditions and specific breeds dying from grain free. And so that's why for me I'm very reserved about you know messing with like think I don't know, messing with things. And we see people that, again, this is not calling out anyone. This is like a
Absolutely.
collective you. People think like me, like, oh, they're from New Caledonia. I need to miss them every single night, not realizing over missing them it will literally kill them, right? Because they won't shed. So it's like you sometimes do things with good intentions. You give too much of a multivitamin. You can over calcify the crickets that you shake. You can coat them in calcium. You can create, so people create a lot of issues, and that's why the UVB discussion is hard, because you need to be on like Arcadia on their website. They have a guide for when to feed what supplements and do
Oh,
D3 once every other week. Like it's so much. It's such a
I love how
complicated
science based
discussion
they
to
are,
have.
though. Like I watch some of their like Arcadia's YouTube, like they have a YouTube channel, and I've also watched. I don't know the guy's name, but he has like a ponytail and wears glasses. But he has like I don't know, is it English accent or something? But he works for Arcadia, and he's like a doctor of light. Like I don't know what the hell it's called,
Yeah, they
but they
have
are so on
experts.
point with their systems, their technology that it's. I mean, I love how
Yes.
they do it. Everything is pretty much science based. There's study to back up everything that they offer, like all of their supplements. There's science behind. I love it. All that Earth Pro stuff, and I think they have an amazing
Yeah, that's
line of
why I like
product stuff.
Arcadia brand,
That's
and they dumb it down. What I do like is they dumb it down. They say, okay, if you have D3, give like this product without the D3 and do this. If it, like, it's just so it's how like I hope it could be in the future for like the crusty space, right? Because right now it's easy for anyone that's, any kid to go throw. I mean, you could breed geckos in the dark in a closet in 6 quarts. Like
Sure
anybody can
could.
do this, and not everybody should, and a lot of people
You
shouldn't.
ain't lying. So how some people don't like this question, but you already kind of answered it, so I'm going to ask how many pairs do you have going this year, and what are some projects that you're working on? What is your goal in the
Mhm.
hobby? Like, what are you trying to create? What are you trying to improve on? What is glowing geckos bringing to the table?
Yeah. So this year's a big like pivot year for me. Last year I had a great year and so much fun, like really connecting with the community. I was one of like the very early people on Palm Street, which was really fun. That's a whole different conversation. But I definitely produced a lot of geckos, and it this year I'm producing significantly less because my goal is to kind of fix everything I can to the best of my ability. I have extremely good record keeping now, but my plan is to have like perfect record keeping and tracking lineage and be a breeder that I'm not trying to be like so far like up my own ass like snooty about it, but just have things organized. That's kind of my goal for this year. I was going to do about I think 70 females. I've pulled that back. I actually probably only have maybe 25 right now.
What?
So I'm gonna
So that's a
have,
lot. It's a
sorry?
huge like reduction from that many.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's because I took a look. People need to be willing to change when presented with information. And this year, I saw at expos stuff I didn't like. I saw people with 1 gram geckos for $20 flipping on tables, and stuff like that. That just and I always do great at shows, even though my the cheapest gecko I'll put on a table is like 40, $50. And I always do well. And kind of reevaluating that. I want to have not such nice stuff that it's like so expensive it's unattainable, but just really like kind of like you said, like you lost your passion for Dalmatians. Like, well, I've gained a passion for Dalmatians. Definitely like spending money, acquired animals, shifting around pairs, and then putting a lot of my focus more into the research side of things. So this year's probably going to be like a lower production year for me. So 2026 is like where my sights are set, but I still very much I love this community. I go to Flora Fauna and the big shows, and like all my best friends are in this community. So I want to have my collection be something that I'm super excited every day to look at, and bring more like just good vibes and research and fun and positivity. Like that's kind of my goal for the second half of
Awesome.
this year. Like I'm not even worried about sales and breeding. Like I think I've just got myself in a different headspace entirely for
That's
this
good.
year.
That's good. I mean, you're doing all of those things too. It's refreshing. It's refreshing. It's always good after I've seen the breeders, I guess you will. I've seen the faces turn over so much in these 8 years or so that I've been doing this, and again, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of it's. I feel like the hobby's taken a turn for the better, right? Like but you're fitting
Yeah.
the mold. You're very outgoing. You bringing something to the table. That's a good way for me to, I guess, to explain it. Is that I feel like a lot of the newer people now have come into this to offer something and not take things away. There was a time in this hobby where everybody wanted to just come and get money. Everybody was just a
Mm,
money grab. It's all it was a money grab. Now people are bringing
yes.
stuff to offer, whether it's great personalities or offering help or refined animals or just an overall positive vibe. It's
Yeah.
very refreshing.
I'm not worried about like sales this year. Like if I had extra money, would that help me immensely? Of course it would. But my focus is really on like again, not to be so like not in a condescending way, but like I want to create better care guides and go to shows and like meet people and like kind of be open about like what I do with my animals and why I'm working with a group of veterinarians. Like that's
Sure.
just kind of what I'm doing for this year. And then you asked what projects I like. I like tricolors and lilies. Basic reds. I'm a redhead. I like Axanthic, Dalmatians, but I like so much that I want to have really nice small quantities of those things, not just like all these, all
Sure,
this. It's too
sure.
much. It stopped being like such a fun thing for me, like we talked about earlier. So that's why I feel like very fulfilled doing like research and giving back. A big something that I'm interested in for this year, next year, is growth rates with babies. There's a big debate about if you should separate them when they hatch or if you should keep them together if there's competition and better growth rates. So that's an actual research study I'm doing with the university because you have to have animal welfare standards. You can't just start experimenting on animals. So I'm going to have a whole group where the clutch mates are separated and then groups where the clutch mates are kept together and look at growth rates and
Awesome.
competition, things like that. So that's kind of how I
That
want
is
to
awesome. And I
contribute.
don't think anybody is doing that. That is what the community needs, right? Someone with connections, to be quite frank, like you have, to the veterinary
Mhm.
animal training world, that can take these animals that for some reason keep getting overlooked and really get some get the science going.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The 10 people that are going to read the
A lot of
paper,
people
like,
will
I'm
read
here
a
for you
lot of
guys.
people will read that stuff. I mean, you already got me thinking. I'm sitting here asking myself in my head, what is better? I used to do it this way, but now I do
Yeah,
it
that's
this
how it
way. And
starts.
well, was I just better
Start the
before, or was it
conversation.
not? Like, very interesting,
Yeah.
because a lot of people will, they don't look at healthy competition in the reptile world. There's certain species of geckos that won't reproduce unless there is competition amongst two males. Like, you will not succeed at breeding certain species of leaf tails if there's not multiple males.
Yeah, so I don't know about that species, but like morning geckos, the more girlies, the better because of how they interact and lay eggs. So it's like it's such a we're such a niche community, but there's so many of us, and people really
Absolutely, they
care
do.
about this
And
and
as
want to
big as
know.
this the genus is of geckos, right? Like, as big as geckos are,
Yeah,
there's such little bit of such little science on them. It's always like pulling
right.
teeth, or like to try to find information on these geckos. Like, I can't find anything
It
scientific. Like, I
is.
want to see something scientific, and it always ends with, oh, New Caledonia is so hard to get
It's
to.
not there.
It's New Caledonia is not easy to access. We can't gather the scientific information that we need. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe so, maybe not. I don't know, but to know that someone's doing it is super. That's very, very cool.
Yeah. There's lots of us trying to do it. There's a big push this year, so hopefully in like the next 12 to
That is
24 months, I
awesome.
know
Keep
I'm
me
writing,
posted.
gosh,
Please
I have
keep
like
me
four
posted.
papers and I will keep everyone like
Hell
tapped
yeah.
in because there's lots of veterinarians and other people in the space and that do research that are doing a lot of my stuff is going to focus
Yeah,
on like the
yeah.
breeding and fertility side, but it's stuff that I hope the community will accept. Sometimes
I
people
know.
come out with papers and there's backlash, but it's going to be
And you know what? They
you
can't
know
push
a,
back
a
on
published peer
scientific
reviewed study.
papers. You can't push back on science, right? Like, science is science. If you're publishing a paper on opinions, totally different, totally different, and that does start controversy all the time. You can't argue the science. If there's science that proves it,
And if you do want to argue
then
the
let them.
science,
Then let them. You
go
ain't
do it.
lying. Then let them.
Please. The whole point of science is to
Nice.
prove things. So if you think, oh no, I didn't like her study, do your like please do
Absolutely.
your own. Show us what happens with your collection. Like it should be a huge
Sure.
body of
You would
information.
think that too. Like, that's what we're always, also another thing I'm always preaching, but I'm always saying on this podcast, is that with everybody out there, if you could imagine, instead of one person trying to do a study, right, and looking at a small group of animals and saying this is what's happening, with as many people that keep these crested geckos and all these eyes that are on all these little collections throughout this world, why is there not like a
Yeah.
central database where we're all communicating and figuring it out and sharing information? I mean, wouldn't it be so much easier? Like instead of gatekeeping, like, if
Yeah.
you have a finding, if you've experienced something or you know something, like, you should want to share it. I mean, I guess people are judgmental and some people are just nervous to get judged, but if someone is experienced something or observe something, that's their observation, right? Like that's a it's. I mean, I guess
Observational data is
That's
still data. I mean, it might not be the end all
yeah.
be all, but it's still data. It's a data point,
So
right? And you can create a data
sure,
set from that and see if that's an outlier. Maybe, but maybe 50 other people have had the same thing happen. You don't
if you're
know
not talking about it
if we're not
exactly, if you're
sharing.
not sharing. So how did the whole topic come up of you know raising a or raising hatchlings together or separating? Where did that come from, or how did that come from? Or
Ooh, good question. Actually, I felt like I do feel like this still. I feel like I have slower growth rates than other breeders and breeders in my area, despite emulating things they do. And what I'm doing in my study is also controlling for variables. It's boring statistics, but controlling for variables that include like the weight of the egg and the size of the parents. Because I kind of a secondary goal with this is I think there's a very large genetic component to growth being growth rate and adult size, and I think that's a huge component. So if I have any geckos that are very slow growing or very small adults, I personally don't breed them because I truly think there's a very large, very overlooked genetic component to the growth rates. So I do definitely have some adults that I think are like smaller, and that kind of goes into the competition thing. There's a few people here in SoCal. Oh, I'm not in California. I'm in Florida. So Flo, one of them, Quincy from Gecko Nerd, he is a wealth of information. I've talked to him about this several times, like because he's been doing this for so
very
long,
observant.
and I really wanted I wanted a study to kind of give information on this because if you ask two breeders, they'll be like, separate them, they grow so much faster, and the other breeders like, no, keep them together. And I've been doing my own non-official study, keeping like some together, some separate. And I don't have any of the issues. Like I don't have any tail drops, tail nips. I haven't had any aggression as long as I separate them by a certain size. So
It's
I
interesting.
just think it comes out of my own
Yeah,
interest.
sure,
If my animals are growing a bit slower, is it something with the environment? Is it something I'm doing? Is it how I make the food? Is it genetics? So a true research study will have a
sure,
very large statistical model and it will control for
sure, sure.
those
What do
factors
you
and those
think that it
variables.
is that thus far? What do you think you got going on
Me personally, I think
with the slower
ugh,
growth rate?
I'm going to give you a couple reasons. I think one, I think it's mostly related to di- uh, the diet, and that includes preparation and palpability, and then genetics, and then I really think that temperature and humidity is underlooked. So I've noticed that geckos, when I've moved cages around to be like farther away from an AC vent or closer to a window, and they're fed a diet they love, like fig and insect, versus trying to give growth and breeder. Those are factors that I've personally noticed before, like starting a research study. So I also think insects are a huge factor. But something in the commentary of my paper I'm going to put is the geckos don't have to grow fast. I think there's this weird thing in the community, like your female has to be 45 grams by 18 months to be bred, and it's like oh my god, like let them grow. So are we feeding them? Are we power feeding them? Are we doing something unnatural? These are all kind of things that are being fleshed out.
Awesome trains and
But
awesome
I don't.
thought process. I've everything you're talking about. I've been there. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's interesting to hear that you're going down the same path with the same questions and the same you're searching out an answer the same way. I love it. I think that's amazing, and I have no doubt in my mind that you won't find the answer that you're looking.
I think it'll be good for the entire community just to look at like what's best for hatchlings themselves as well. But I think a lot of breeders' solution is just like, well, give them crickets 5 times a week and forget this. But I truly believe that if we're growing females or males too quickly, you're going to ruin their longevity, their long term, those formative 6 months. I mean, think about a baby. It's so important. And are we doing a disservice to the animals by trying to make them grow at a
Sure.
certain rate? So it's all kind of things in my
It's awesome though.
rolling around in my head.
Takes a question, right? Questions generate answers. If you never questioned any of this, then there would never be any real answers, right? Like you would never have a reason to look for these scientific answers. You hit on a lot of points that are like super valid, right? With the growth thing. Now I know these animals, like we had mentioned, they're not in the wild anymore. They are in captivity and whatnot, and there's drastic differences. But if you were to look at it, I had the opportunity to speak with Thomas Marriott. He's a real biologist. He was just over in New Caledonia. And he took all types of photographs of real wild crested geckos. Now, granted, you don't know how old they are, but they're like two totally different animals, right? Like night and day.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think like saying I don't know how to really, how do I say this? Like we are selectively breeding these things for what we want. When we set a weight and certain other like factors, like when we set them and then we don't breed to that until they meet those criteria. If they never do, then they never breed. But the animals that do meet those criteria do get bred. So we are like selectively breeding and creating larger, faster growing.
And is that even a good thing?
So. I mean, we can say that with bearded dragons.
I agree. It's not. I don't think it is. I've had some people even say like, "Oh, your geckos are like so much leaner." Some of my adults, and I'm like, it's again coming from veterinary. A leaner animal is a healthier animal than an overweight animal any day of the week.
I tell people all the time, famine is much more natural than overfed. It's actually healthy,
It is. It actually with I need a reptile so you back this up, but it is healthier for them. Their metabolism, their life, their joints, how long they're going to live, everything. Their organs.
Absolutely.
It's just there's no visceral fat. I mean, it's it's something that I think like, am I doing something? And again, it's not like my animals don't grow, but I see some people. I'm like, how is that gecko that size at 12 months? Like, and should it be that size?
Yeah. It's a weird thing too, because and as controversial as it is, I run high temperatures. I run my room. I keep my room 75 to 80 degrees. I keep the humidity is like 70 something percent. Right now it's at 77.5% my humidity in this freaking sweat.
So you don't need to spray, right?
No, but I use water dishes for ambient humidity.
Me too.
I've evolved into this style that I use now, but my point was getting at the growth rates of my geckos. Now I don't keep them separate for any reason other than I started producing some really nice animals, and I didn't want to risk them losing their tails or getting into fights. But it's never happened. So I can't sit here and lie and say that, I had an animal bite another one and it dropped its tail, because I didn't. I did never have that happen. I really have no reason other than me not wanting that to happen because other people told me it would happen. So that I started separating them. But my animals grow fast. Now, I don't want to say fast because I don't feed Nicks every day. My babies, like my hatchlings, I'll feed them crickets twice a week, and then they get a mix once a week. So it's only 3 times a week my crested geckos eat. But I do feed.
I only feed 3 times a week also, whether they're a day old or 10 years old.
So it's probably normal. Some people feed every day.
Sometimes I'll even feed twice a week. I think feeding every day, I'm going to say, take a shot every time I say anecdotally in this episode. Anecdotally, I don't think feeding every day is good for growth rates or animals.
I don't. Not in a good way. Not in a good way.
They're reptiles. They're not dogs, people.
Absolutely.
They can go days without eating. They'll be
absolutely. I agree 100%. But I believe that my animals grow fast for none of the other stuff other than the temperature. I feel that it's the 100% temperature
agree with you.
That, and I've had, and it's another weird thing. I'm sure you've experienced it, but I have some pairs that don't shut off, Nichole. They don't shut off. They're laying eggs in November,
I have
December,
some, yeah.
January. I'm getting babies year round.
Mm-hmm.
The animals
Yeah,
that hatch in the colder months grow much slower. Now, I can only control my room to a certain
absolutely.
degree, right? So even in the wintertime, I can't bump my house up to 80 degrees. My wife will kill me. So I have it to a set to a certain temperature, then I'll change the temperature in here, but it's still naturally a little colder than
Yeah.
it would be for the rest of the year. Those animals, and I have documented it, written it down, kept track of it, not even a question. The animals that are born in colder months grow half as slow.
I agree. 100%. And, people are so afraid of warm temps with crested geckos, which is valid, but they are resilient. If you go on your phone, if you put New Caledonia, whatever, pick an island, and you look at the temperature on your phone, now they're probably maybe on a moist leaf in the shade, but you will see temperatures in the
Absolutely.
90s over
Absolutely.
there. People saying like you can keep them down in the 60s, like, okay, for short periods, of course, like they can survive, but in an ideal world they should be really between like probably 72 to 79 all the
Sure.
time, and 72 is kind of
Sure. I
low.
agree 100%.
Maybe.
The problem, see, and I've had this conversation before with other people, and we both kind of, not that what they agreed matters, but what we kind of settled on was that it was a good, there were good parameters for the industry to teach people, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
a fail proof way and a safe way to keep people from booming an enclosure up to
Looking up.
85 degrees with no airflow
Yeah.
and bone dry,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that will kill. But
Right.
with the
Right.
right airflow and the right humidity, I do not think 90 degrees will kill a crested gecko in the right situation. But you can't go telling everybody that. You can't tell everybody go out there and keep them at 90 degrees.
Right.
So I feel that it's a
That's why
safe,
I think 65 to 80 is
exactly.
the
But I've
safe
also
the
kept them
safe
cold,
range.
Nichole, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be a reptile kept at no 62 degrees. Like, it's maybe for nighttime, like a nighttime drop, but it's like my whole room slows down. I mean, I have just about every species other than the
Right.
rough snouts from New Caledonia here. None of them are happy when it's 62 degrees. None of them are happy. Like, it's not a pleasant thing for them. Now, when you start getting around like the 70s, you'll see them moving more, they're eating more, everything changes. Everything changes, and it seems like, I mean, and yes, they're reptiles, but it's the temperature controls just about everything that they do, from breeding to eating to pooping to
Exactly.
everything they do is temperature dependent.
In the winter months, our alligators and crocodiles, they would eat maybe once a week, every couple of weeks, and a small meal, like a rat for a whole alligator. And some days you would go call them over, and they wouldn't even want to come over. So of course, yeah, if you're keeping your crested, anything that's going to be like reliant, you can get into endo versus ectothermic, but they were totally reliant on the temperature that's around them. So if you keep them at 62, they're going to move and act like they're kept at
Yeah, but
62
I
degrees
mean, I'm
Fahrenheit. I
sure
mean,
you've heard. I mean, the amount of people I hear even repeating that as what you should keep them at. You should shoot for 62 to 70 degrees.
I haven't heard that, and that's concerning to
Tell me about
me
it. It's very
because
concerning for me, and I hear it all the time, all the time, all the time. It's the cooler the better. If you're comfortable, they're comfortable. Don't go above 72. I'm like, 72 is right around when you're going to start getting a crested gecko. Like, 72 degrees is like the bottom of where you
yeah,
should be. At least in my experience with, again, like I said, with my room and my animals. But it's,
it's hard if you live in a colder
yeah,
climate. In Florida, it's always
for,
hot. We don't really get a cool off period here. I think if you live in a state where it's cool, and you're throwing maybe like a 25-watt ceramic heat emitter on there, and you're making it bone dry, and you're trying to heat it up, and you don't know what you're doing with the heat and the light. I mean, it's like a recipe for
yeah,
disaster.
you're absolutely
If
right.
that's tough
It
to
can
manage,
be.
and you're
Can
not
be.
running thermostats, I
And the
mean,
more we
whew,
talk about it, the more I
that's
think that the reason the hobby or the crested gecko culture has come up with these standards and simplified it is literally because of how big of a mess you could have if you do any of the other things wrong, right? Like, luckily enough, they can
yeah.
tolerate the bare minimum. But it kind of goes into what you were saying before. Just because they can tolerate the bare minimum, does that mean that that's all we owe them? You know, it's I guess it's an ambiguous topic. I mean, it could go
Yeah.
on and back and forth for hours, but it could be bad. It could be bad. Too much water is just as bad as no water at all. Too much heat is as
Yeah.
bad as none. I mean, it's
Worse than
exactly. It's
not enough
kind of
even, or yeah.
like if you're not precise with all the other stuff, this allegedly simple gecko is just not going to exist, right? They're just going to die. It's so maybe
That's why somebody else said this. I can't credit them. I don't know who, but someone said just because it's like a beginner reptile doesn't make mean it's like a easy or it deserves
sure,
less
sure,
than, right? Like you talk about Europlatus. Like, okay, a crested gecko and Europlatus are night and day differences. Like you sneeze in the room with a Europlatus, but still crested geckos deserve to have a certain level of care just because they're easy to care for and they're hardy and they're resilient doesn't mean that they deserve to be, frankly kept just in crappy
absolutely,
conditions.
absolutely. So speaking of conditions, I know we talked a little bit about it, and we're already at an hour and a half. Like I feel so bad because I can talk for hours. If you have to go or anything, just tell me to shut up, and I can just shut up because I'm just going to keep asking questions.
No, no, we'll
What
finish up what we're talking about. I love this.
how are and I know, like again, like I said, we talked a little bit about it. How are you keeping your animals, and how would you say for someone that's coming to your table at a show and is buying their first animal? How are you telling someone to set, or how are you suggesting someone set up their animal?
Mhm. Yeah. So I like to tell them first, like I on my care guide, I have sections. So I always start with like diet. You want to feed like these are the brands I feed. Here's how you make the diet. So I make sure we talk about diet. The humidity is the hard one. I do really want people to have a hygrometer. I'm sure a lot of them don't. If they're getting like a glass Exoterra, my in Florida, my general advice is, do a nice, good misting at night because I already know what that mesh top is going to be evaporated by the next night, so they'll get their dry out. So I go over that. I like to have a little bit of shallow water, so I hit on each topic: food, water, humidity, the heat. I do tell people like 70 to 80. I warn them about briefly the highs and the lows. For substrate, I do always recommend people do keep them on like a paper towel or craft paper for a couple of weeks. And I always tell them like you want to make sure that you know where their hiding places are, that they're defecating, or I tell people like make sure they're pooping, make sure they're eating. So I always go over the basics, and then I generally have a display at my table. Normally it is just a basic 12, 12, 18. And then I vend a lot with my friends from Rogue Exotics and also Scott from Miami Art Geckos. We vend together, like the three of us, a lot. And normally they have like a full bioactive. So I can kind of like explain in here you have fake plants, plastic, you have like this ledge and go over like the pros and cons of that and the glass and the screen top and how to cover the screen versus going for more of like a bioactive setup and what that requires care wise, and then people can kind of make their own
It's
decision
awesome.
from there. So I try to really like I have it
Does
categorized by
everybody get
type:
one of those
food, water,
when
humidity,
you sell an
temperature.
animal? Does everybody get one of your care sheets? Do you give that to them, or is that just something?
I
Oh,
have
okay,
QR codes now just because I found the care sheet people like don't either take a picture of it because I find if you give people something, people have so many stickers and so much stuff. Like I find that it's kind of wasteful. So I have it on the website QR code or like I like people to take a picture of like their gecko like with the care guide or like my link tree or a business card. Um, just because people need to remember how to find you. But people at shows will sell a gecko for $20 and be like, go to the dry good guy and get a tank, and that's it. That's the end of the conversation. And then you people like you and I get
yeah,
contacted for what to
that's
do.
it's unfortunate. I mean, I don't think that's ever really going to go away. As long as crested geckos are popular,
No,
there's going to be those flippers out there, right? They're not breeding them; they're buying them
yeah,
wholesale
yeah.
from someone, putting them on their table just to get eyes on their other animals. It's I don't think that it's going to go away. Speaking of, and I like asking this question lately, and you had mentioned earlier that you were doing some palm streets. I'm curious to get a perspective from everybody that vends shows and sells on Palm Street. What do you think the future of
Mhm.
shows is with these new technologies and these online platforms that we have today? Do you think that shows will continue to go on? Do you think that these online platforms will get bigger? What do you give me some what's your idea, your thoughts on these two?
Yeah. The reason I like shows and still go to shows is for the personal connection. There's people that like it's such a like crazy feeling that people go to a show like cuz they want to see me and talk to me. And it's like very humbling. I love shows because you get that face-to-face time and you get to meet people and they show you their pictures. Like I have so much fun at shows. Even though now for in 2025 they weren't nearly as lucrative for me, but I still love going to shows. There's very good attendance where I'm at for shows, but it definitely varies. Like sometimes it's just families looky loos. There's the breeder types, but I still enjoy shows. I think they'll be around. I was in Palm Street very early. So the Palm Street I knew last year is not the Palm Street of today. Last on Palm Street, we'd have, there was like maybe 15 of us going live. And we were very careful to like stagger our times and our days. And if there was overlap, it's like, okay, like I go for 2, 3 hours, then you
All that's
start.
out the window.
And I know
I said, all that's
what's
out the
that.
window now.
Right. And I know the people at Palm Street,
She's
Veronica. So
awesome.
I'm
She's
not trying to
awesome.
say anything super negative. Oh yeah, she's so sweet. I got to meet her at
Really?
Flora Fauna in New York. So it's just now it's very it's very hard to manage a live sale platform of live animals because we've all seen people on there selling animals that are sick, that are emaciated, that shouldn't be sold, that have obvious medical issues, that are wild caught, being labeled as zoo whatever to get around this wild caught thing. So now I just feel like it's tough because it's giving a platform to people that otherwise would not or probably should not have a platform. I mean, there's people on there selling geckos that have maybe been had geckos for 3 months. How are you going to give any advice to someone when you yourself are so new? And that's where my concern is. I just think the moderation and the approval process needs to be like
I thought that
maybe
it was better. I
revised
didn't even
because
know I some of those things you were telling me the first time I heard. I've never sold on Palm Street, but I always approached by Veronica and I did the whole onboarding thing and all that. I just told him I'm not a seller. I breed for fun and maybe someday I will, but I'm
yeah.
not really selling anything, and nor do I have enough to like to sell. But I watch a lot of the people that a lot of my buddies in the hobby and everything, and
Mhm.
I didn't know. And my point, I guess, what I was getting at is that I thought when they did like my onboarding process, I thought that they were pretty thorough. Like I had to show my whole reptile room, I had to show a baby setup, an adult setup, like I had to show all these crazy things. And I'm like, while I'm doing that, I'm like, oh well, this is better than Morph Market. I mean, damn, they're just like flat out allowing people that they're just letting people flip reptiles on there. At least this platform is like
Mhm.
seriously, checking you out. But now that I hear that, ugh,
That's new. When I started, it was just like referrals. So I actually had to. Scott gave me his referral because he was one of like the original like 6 people. So I mean, I would consistently in 2024, I would make 3 times as much doing a palm than a
I
whole
hear
weekend
that.
at a show, like just from home. And it was so much fun, like being on camera, like talking to people. Like it was a blast. I had so much fun. It was really a good time, and the animals were less stressed because they were just staying at home. I love talk. You can tell I love to talk. I love talking to the chat. But things have definitely changed because and it's there's still of course a lot of great people on there. I haven't done one in quite a while. I need to make my
Big
big comeback
Sunday,
on
right?
these.
Sunday,
But now
Sunday.
I oh
Yeah, he spilled the beans. He told me.
yes, Sunday I'll be with Scotty. But it's I mean there's because people kind of know I was early in Palm. I get so many screenshots from people of like animals with like obvious deformities and issues, and it has definitely lowered the value of some animals because it's an auction style. An animal that maybe was $500 last year, maybe goes on there for half price. And so that's kind of a nuanced conversation. I think it's great that Palm is an accessible platform, and I also think it's bad that Palm is
Yeah,
an
you're
accessible
right. You're
platform.
right. You're right. You've made me think. You've made me think outside of my normal thought process with a lot of things tonight, actually, which is amazing. So I love talking to so many different people. As I feel like I get set in my ways. I'm
Yeah.
human too. Like I get caught in my own thought process, right? And I like feel that
Yeah,
it's the
yeah, of
right way
course. I
because
do too.
it's the only way I encounter is my thought process. When I come across other people, I speak to other people that do the same thing but a different way. I'm like, huh, okay. That's that. That's that. That
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. All right. Okay. And then you learn, right? You learn, you grow, and everything gets better.
You have to be willing to change your
Sure.
opinion, admit
Sure.
you're wrong. Like if you can't, if people that can't
Sure.
do
They're
that,
clearly they're
I
clearly
can't
not
trust
married. They're
them.
clearly not married. You have to admit I'm wrong when I'm not. But
I'm always right
see? Nah.
at home.
Being that you have this history in the medical field, I have a question for you, which is actually kind of controversial. We're talking about not like people
Ooh.
wise, but it's this controversial topic. Animals that are born deformed. Now, I personally know people that have taken animals that have had deformities that weren't that bad or weren't genetic deformities, and they've incorporated them into breeding programs because they were pretty stacked animals genetically, and they're pairing them to animals that are healthy because they, for whatever
Mhm.
reason, thought that it was ethical to breed a handicapped animal or a potentially, genetically mutated animal to something else. What's your whole stance on animals? How do I say this? Like, an animal
Seem like
born
an
like
example. Like
instead
what
of
is an
crested
issue
gecko,
like
a
that
crested
was
gecko,
bred?
crested gecko's born with a kinked back and a short leg.
Okay, okay. All right. So when an animal hatches with something wrong, we call that congenital. It has like a congenital. It's from birth. So I've had a few congenital issues, deformities. I've had three hatch with some type of neurological or a vestibular issue, which is basically like a head tilt. If you've ever heard or seen a dog, like older dogs will that have like seizures or neurological problems, they'll develop like a head tilt, kind of like how spider ball pythons or certain
Sure.
animals have
So are
like a
these lily
wobble.
whites?
So I've hatched out maybe two or three that have had like a vestibular neurological head tilt, and then one that had a congenital jaw deformity, and no other. There was a repeat pairing. I have lots of babies from them, and had no other geckos hatch with that. So the variables there are going to be in development. Was there something with development? Was the humidity a heat issue? The egg was not calcified, or is it truly, like think about like a human in the womb. Like if uh, with humans, if you're pregnant during cold and flu season, the babies have a higher chance of having schizophrenia. That's a real fact. So like is it something like in vitro, or is it something that's like
Interesting.
hereditary, like really genetic that can be passed on? My opinion, as someone that shows dogs and works in this industry, if you have any specimen that is not like a healthy, good example or representation, it just shouldn't be bred. Now, the caveat I'll put into that, because the jury's still out, is like floppy tail. I think, along with a lot of other people, floppy tail seems to be a couple of things, but overweight animals, lack of activity, and then that area of their body, it's not like okay, it is their spine, but they drop that part of their body. That's their tail. It's like literally meant to come off. It's kind of like dorsal fin, like a killer whale dorsal fin in captivity. They'll flop over because it's not even cartilage. It's just like connective tissue, right? So floppy tail, I'm not going to comment on. I think people do breed floppy tail, but if you have a gecko with a humped back, a shortened jaw, an underbite, an overbite, one eye bigger than the other, bug eyes, missing a toe, an extra toe,
Don't give
a
her.
kinked tail. I mean, like for example, if you get a baby's tail caught in a door and it kinks, okay, that's different. But there's no reason to be breeding animals that are not a healthy, really good representation even if you think the underbite is because you didn't give enough calcium as a baby, like, then you probably shouldn't be
Sure.
breeding it at all.
Sure.
Did I
No, no,
ramble
you
or did I
answered.
answer your
You
question?
definitely answered the question. Now, my next question for that is what do people do with
What do you do
those?
with those
I mean,
animals?
is it possible to
Yeah.
plausible to always find a pet home? Is it do people keep them? Or like in the snake world, I hate to be so blunt about it, they cull them. They put them in a freezer and they cull their animals.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that the gecko world is so much different than the snake world? I mean, how do you feel about that whole thing? Or do people do it and they just don't say
Yeah.
anything about
People do and they don't say anything.
it?
Is
I
the reality of
wouldn't
it. If
imagine so.
my big disclaimer is two things. Quality of life is the
This is what
term
I was
that
getting
everyone needs to think about. Can the animal have a good quality of life? The two animals with like a head tilt, it's two. I have them. And they grow really slowly. They have good quality of life. I mean, I could go, one of them's a little red phantom. I can go grab it and show you. The one with the jaw deformity, I euthanized. And when I say I euthanized, I did not put it in a freezer. I have
so.
special
You're a
access to
fat, yeah.
veterinarians, and so was able to go to a veterinarian's house and and have it humanely euthanized via injection. But if you haven't, it really comes down to quality of life, and you have to ascertain if they're going to have a good quality of life. Are they going to be able to walk and eat and function and not be in pain? If yes, they can go to maybe a pet home, or I really think it's probably better if you just keep them and keep them in your collection. And if they are not going to have a good quality of life, again, going back to dogs, if you have a dog with a poor quality of life, it breaks your heart. What would you do? Go to a veterinarian, give them the best day of their life, and humanely have them euthanized. And I think reptiles deserve the same respect. It I don't know if this is too morbid, but do not freeze your animals. That is probably the worst, the
That's what I'm
absolute
saying.
worst way that you could
When
euthanize
people
an
tell me this, I'm like, could you imagine
animal.
freezing to death? Are you going to tell me that that's ethical? You freezing to death,
It,
like that's like ethical?
it's
Like it's the best way to
it's
do it. Just put them in
the
the freezer.
worst.
Well, listen, the only other thing
No.
that I would fear more than freezing would quite literally be burning. Like two things I don't want. Like who
Yeah.
does
It's
this?
terrible. And they're gonna asphyxiate in whatever bag. Do not freeze your animals.
Exactly.
I don't because I'm licensed, it's hard for me to give out true like medical advice. So I'll just repeat what two board certified veterinarians have told me, in specializing in reptiles. If you cannot go to a vet, you have like a suffering animal, and for whatever reason you have to euthanize them, they either say let nature take its course, like take like a researcher, like don't intervene, make the animal comfortable type of opinion, or like a blunt force to the head, like an instant, kind of like when people like meat
Well,
rabbits, they kind of like break their neck. This is so
you ain't
morbid to
lying. So
say,
I tell you what, I
but
asked one of the biggest
but
names.
don't
One of the
freeze your
biggest
animals.
names. I had an animal one time that was years ago, bearded dragon. One of these bearded dragons hatched out and it was literally missing from birth, was missing half of its tail, and its two back feet were like, I didn't even know how to explain it. They were like just, yeah,
They
they
didn't
like
develop.
stopped developing. Just one out of the
Yeah.
whole clutch. So I'm trying to figure out what to do with this animal, and I'm messaging people all over the place. And I had one of the biggest
Yeah.
names in reptiles, this female in the YouTube world of reptiles, and that's quite literally what she said. She said, "There's nothing you can do other than smash its head." I'm like, "What?" I'm
And it
dead
sounds
serious. I thought she was
terrible.
crazy. I'm like, "Is
And
this the advice you give people?" And they come to find out from talking
no,
to people, like, "Yeah, dude." I even asked Brian who. I reached out to Brian, and Brian was like, "Yo, Ant, that's the way they do it, dude. Like, whack it in the head." I'm like, "Dude, no."
because I'm licensed, this is not medical advice, but that is the most versus letting an animal suffer, like put them in like a bag. That is the most quick, humane. I mean, people that have homesteads or raise meat animals or meat chickens, that's essentially what's done, like an internal decapitation, right? And as hard as this is to talk about, and I don't want it to come off like I'm super callous, but the reality is breeders will be in those
Yes.
situations. And I do really obviously recommend that they go to, even if it's a general veterinary practitioner, like call the office, talk to the office. A lot of these veterinarians have an interest in small animals and aren't going to charge you an arm and a leg, especially if you say, like, I have an animal that needs to be humanely euthanized, drop it off. There's
It's
so
good
many
to know.
options, but don't
It's good
treat
to
your
know.
animals or
Well, my
suffocate
reason
them,
in
please.
asking you it
Don't
is
do that.
I don't mean to be offensive or put you in the hot seat. It's but because your history with veterinary science and medicine. And I know for a fact that it's more common than people talk about. And I know for a fact more people come across these situations than anyone's admitting. With the hundreds of thousands of baby
Yes,
crested geckos that are born every year,
people reach out to
people
me
need to
constantly
know what
about
the right
this.
protocol is. It's not
Yeah.
giving them this crazy, unpleasant life and then pawning them off on someone later on who thinks they're doing the world a favor and actually tries to breed one of these things. Like
Right.
that's
That's my gripe with these like pet quality. Like
yes.
if the three animals that have like a minor congenital issue, I just keep them. I'm all about quality of life, and you should have a veterinarian in your area that you have at least like some kind of relationship with. Almost every I've been working in the vet industry for over 15 years. If you call up a vet and say, I have a sick, injured, dying animal, I don't know what to do, almost any vet, even a general practitioner, will be like, probably be just like, come sign up some paperwork and drop it off. And for free, they will administer the euthanasia
That's
medication. I can
awesome.
almost
That's humane. That's the
guarantee that
right
to
thing
you.
to do.
That that's the right thing to do. Almost any vet office, we love animals. We want to help animals. I've never worked anywhere that would turn that person away. It's like, come, we had a duck come in. Yeah, call vet. Say I don't have any money. I need an animal euthanized. I can guarantee the vet will say just drop them off. Like you should have those connections and know that's what to do.
That's
And it's just
you're
to be a good
absolutely
person. Like,
that's it's awesome that you share that with us because again, not to repeat myself, but with as many as these things are born every year, right? Snake people are
yep,
so open with how they cull their sick or, I hate to say it, but unfortunately, sometimes just non-desired animals, right? Like, and it's a cool thing in their world. Like, that's just what they do. But in the gecko world, it's like, oh, I don't breed, deformed geckos. No, mine are all healthy. Mine are okay. And then people are doing things and really don't know how. I mean, I think it's something that could be less
yeah,
taboo. I don't want to say more talked about because the more it's talked about, then that would mean there's more deformed animals, and I don't want that. But I think that there should be a protocol, like a proper
the
protocol.
information needs to be
Yes, yes.
available. And that's why I'm open about, like, I know like what animals, like I can think of the little red phantom and the parents and why, like, his head tilt, he's the only one. Like, why does he
I was
have
just
this
going to ask
vestibular
you.
issue? Like,
You
I
have no
don't
idea
know.
what causes that. What's
And
up with
it's
that? Because I've heard with lily whites that they were actually in the beginning when lily whites and lily
yeah,
exotics.
when
Yeah,
they first
there was one
identified.
of the main issues. They were getting these head tilts and these whatever you're
Hmm.
calling it, vestigial tilt, whatever, what is it called?
Even, I mean, even those though with the early lilies was extremely
Oh, it
rare and
was.
uncommon.
Okay.
It was back then, and then even now. I mean, overall, crested geckos are an extremely healthy like animal. I mean, we don't really see many health issues with them, which
No,
is
no.
fantastic. I mean, if you've ever gotten a dog, you listening, like, okay, you get this breed, they might have like hip dysplasia and this and that. Like, luckily, reptiles are very they're very resilient. But a lot of times you'll have one out of maybe a repeat pairing, and you just know you don't know why. I'm really leaning towards it being something with the incubation process or with egg development versus a true like hereditary
I think
or
you would
like
have known
like
that
an
if it
issue
was
that's been.
hereditary. You would have recognized. I mean, especially of all people, you would have recognized a pattern. If it's just one animal, then you got to start thinking of
Yeah,
other options. But I'm curious about that one in particular because I have one gecko and I don't know if it's me. Like I'm very weird. Like I notice like the littlest things. I have 200 animals and I
I do
investigate
too.
every one of these animals every day. Every day I can tell you where every one of my geckos is hiding at any given time of the day. And people think I'm lying when I tell them that. That how can you know that much about all those animals? I'm like, dude, that's what I do. Like it's what I do. It's what I do.
Yeah, it's my thing.
But I have one baby
Literally.
gecko, and he looked at me weird 2 times. He just hatched. He's probably a couple weeks old. He's a lily white. And I put him in a bin one time, or I was doing something in his cup and he was freaking out. And he looked up at the sky, but he looked so high that he did a backflip. And I was like, that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that in all these years. That you didn't know where to stop looking. You just
Sounds
looked
neurological.
yourself into a circle. Then a couple days goes by, nothing happens, and he did it again last night or the night before. And I was like, you know what? Pull this bin, put it aside. Now I got to watch it. Because now, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's not walking in circles and he doesn't move his head in a tilt, but it's almost like those sheep, you know, those, the goats that have seizures, that, like, freeze up when you scare them. Fainting
Like
goats.
the fainting
Like,
ghost.
something like that
Yeah.
with him. Like, every time he gets spooked, he does this stupid, I hate to call it stupid, but he does this stare into nothing and, like,
Yeah.
rolls over.
Send me a video, because you
I
have
can't get
to
him to do it every
you
time.
have
I
to
gotta
go
like
down.
scare. It's got to be, but I will get it. I will get it and send it to him. He's only done it twice.
Anytime you have an animal doing something, there's two routes. Is it behavioral or is it physical? Start there. Is it behavioral or is it physical? And then you can kind of parse out. But generally, when animals have difficulty with balance, it's going to be something like neurological, but also it could be something that's, I haven't experienced that, but it could be something maybe behavioral. I highly doubt it. Or also people don't think about things like pain. Like, if an animal's in pain, they may do something odd. If an animal is uncomfortable, they may do something. I mean, who knows? Like,
It's
definitely send me a
interesting.
video
Yeah,
of
you'll
that.
see. It's a very
I'll
very
give you my opinion
interesting
on it.
situation. But again, I noticed stuff like that. Maybe someone else wouldn't have.
I do too.
So out of all
Yeah.
you said 3 animals. Out of all the times you've been breeding in 3 years, you've only had 3 with any type of issues. Like, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Mm-hmm. And it's a lily white that had the jaw deformity that was euthanized, a red phantom with the head tilt, and then a tricolor with the head tilt. Those are the three. I've had some things happen, like eggs stop development near the end, some stuff like that I've like investigated. But in terms of animal that made it to hatch, just those
With
three.
your medical experience, your veterinary experience, again, what are some really good pieces of? Can you give us any advice on how to avoid any of the more common health issues with these guys, like respiratory issues, and or what are some other common health issues that may be
Mm-hmm.
overlooking, like the weight thing? What advice could you give us
Yeah.
to better our collections, like just regular day stuff? What advice? I don't know
Yeah.
how to really say it any better, I guess. Like, with your professional,
Yeah. No, I
like
got it. I got it.
scientific.
I know what you're saying. I think one of the most overlooked things is to have good air circulation and clean your freaking cages. I think a lot of people, because they don't produce like large like fecal matter, people don't really like clean in the cages. And the longer you go, like, there are people that literally, I'm not kidding, clean maybe cages like once a year, every
Well,
2 years. Like, that's
Jesus, I hear
extremely
people
common.
talk about once a month, and
Yes.
I'm like, what the hell does your house smell like? What does your room smell
I I think because I've like the
like? Oh my
veterinary
god!
background, people are very comfortable like non-judgmentally asking me for like advice on stuff. I hear crazy stuff. I won't ever out you. I really will help you if you message me, I promise. Um, but you need to clean your cages, like, even if you're just wiping things down. So many issues develop because of bad air circulation, stagnant air, stagnant water, mold, pathogens, bacteria, and then what we call like a fomite. So, like, for example, you're introducing, so your phone is a fomite. If you go to the bathroom and you're playing around on your phone, and then you wash your hands and you pick your phone back up, your phone is covered in bacteria. So people need to have good like hand washing protocols, cleaning protocols, general stuff like that. That would be a huge step forward for people that are having issues with their geckos. Um, Another thing is monitoring the feeding. We talked about the obesity. The obesity is a killer. And then I harped on this enough, but I think humidity is the other big one. You need to give them, I'm like you, I rarely spray because where my humidity is. But if you need to spray, they can't be wet all the time. That is the biggest killer of baby geckos, in my opinion. Keeping them too wet, I mean, they don't tolerate it well. They will get upper respiratory infections. They will not shed properly. Their toes will and tail will
Yeah, have
become
you seen those
necrotic and fall
like
off. It
bacterial infections, like fungal infections rather? Have you ever seen that like at work and stuff? Really?
oh,
Yeah, I've
I've
heard
seen it
about it, but
all.
I've never seen it.
I've
I
seen it
heard it's
on
from like
face.
excess water. They'll get like real fungal infections from probably just a dirty
They get
environment,
everything.
wet.
I mean, they don't even need to have an infection. If you just they shed a lot when they're young. If they have a couple of bad sheds and it gets stuck on their foot, their entire foot will come off. And that goes back to how resilient they are. But for me, it's the humidity. Like, stop keeping them soaking wet. Like, if you need to spray them every day because you live in Arizona, twice a day even, fine. But don't keep them wet. Have ventilation. If you're using 6 quart tubs and you have like a couple of holes in the front, cross flow. Like, you need to kind of use some common sense. Like, let things dry out. Wear gloves. If you're wearing gloves, change them. It's not a substitute for hand washing. Spot clean your cage. Like, there's just basic stuff that I think people overlook in their rush to grow their animals and have the coolest axanthic blah 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 blah. It's just like, go think about the basics. Keep
That's
some records. You like weigh them twice a year even. Check the calcium sacs sometimes. Look at the bottom of their feet. Like, just do little things like
welfare
that and you'll take
checks for
that
sure.
much better care of your
Now,
animals.
again, I think you have a unique perspective. What are people? I feel that people seriously neglect and underestimate quarantining new animals. They think because we have crested geckos
Mm,
and well, this crested gecko came from a collection with nothing but other crested geckos and they're not wild animals, so they just forget about it. Can you give us some insight as someone with a veterinary background into the importance or
yeah.
lack of importance, if you feel that way, about quarantining animals?
Right. And kind of my do as I say, not as I do. Like, for example, Scott from Miami Art Geckos lives an hour from me. He's my friend. If I get a gecko from him, honestly, I'm putting it straight with my animals. Like, I don't feel
Understand.
like he's someone that we exchange geckos. I'm at his house. Like, he's like it but having a relationship like that with someone, especially with how spread apart we are in shipping, is very uncommon. So, like, someone like Scott or like Quincy from Gecko Nerd, like, I go to the house, like, I'm there. But quarantine, I really think it's important for more than just medical reasons. Number one, it's important because you don't know what bacteria you're going to give to the animal as well. So you're just as likely to maybe have something in your own collection that maybe that animal's not exposed to in whatever environment it came from. And if that animal is stressed out, exposed to new bacteria, I mean, that's how they get really sick. So it's almost more important that you're not introducing something to them versus them introducing something to your collection. And the other benefit of quarantine, of course, is monitoring the animal, keeping them on paper towel, seeing what their behavior is like. If you're just going to toss them in your gecko room, you're not going to know if they're not drinking, if they're dehydrated, if they drop their tail, if they walk weird. Like, you won't notice those things unless you quarantine. I do think the risk of like them introducing some crazy disease with crested geckos is very low, to be honest. It's not like other species or imports where most people don't quarantine. I would say upwards of 90% of people do no quarantine. But you introducing something to harm that animal or you missing something, that is almost arguably as important. But you should be quarantining your animals. A
Well,
true quarantine is 30 to 90
yeah, but
days,
like you said, it's
you
it's a,
know.
it's a not a you know it's not. I'm like yourself too. Depending on where my animals come from, and I if I know somebody or I've been there, I'm thoroughly confident. I get that comfortable too. I hate to say it, but I won't. Like if I'm like this animal's here, I can look at it. I know where it's come from. I don't always quarantine, especially my crested geckos. When I get other species and stuff like that, then I do, and I just feel like it's one of those things that's taken for granted. Now I don't know that
Yeah.
it's
Until something
yeah, but I mean, when
catastrophic
you're talking
happens.
about, see, the thing is, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but my whole stance, like I kind of mentioned earlier, is that these things aren't coming from the wild, right? Like you're not going to find. a wild crested gecko, right? You're not going to introduce a wild
No,
crested gecko
no,
into your hobby.
never.
And maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something that could have been contracted from another animal to another collection. And that's where I get worried. It's like, are you being so relaxed that you like brought something else into your home that doesn't have to be from the wild and you gave it to your animals? Like, that's where I always try to catch myself and check myself. And,
Yeah.
and I never do, but it's
I think it's so easy to do a quarantine. Like if you just have like a separate room with some tanks with paper towel for a couple weeks. Is it strictly required? Oh, I don't know if I'm the authority to say yes or no, but most people don't. We don't really have a lot of like first off zoonotic illness with reptiles, meaning like illnesses I can get. So like if a dog has parvo, I can't get parvo, right? So we don't really have that like with reptiles really, besides like uh salmonella, parasites. So the risk is extremely minimal. But if you truly want to follow best practices, if especially if you're someone that's getting in like one infrequently, it's not hard to do a brief quarantine. Is it strictly necessary? Honestly, probably not. Do I? If it's coming from somewhere I don't know, absolutely. But that's just as much so that
sure.
I don't
Yeah.
like give something to the animal and I know its behavior as much as it is to protect my collection because we don't really have like with frogs. Frogs
Figures.
need to be quarantined.
Yeah.
Like frogs will obliterate your collection, right? With other frogs. We don't really have that with crested geckos that we know of currently to that
Yeah,
extent, right?
not that I'm aware of. That's what I was just getting ready to ask you. Do you know of anything with crested geckos that could do something like that? Is there anything? Have you ever heard of crypto in crested geckos?
Yes. Ooh. Oh, I feel like yes, but I would need to like get back to you with a good
I
answer. A
watched a
good yes or no.
podcast. I forgot which one it was, but it was with two girls, and they were talking about someone else. They were interviewing somebody. They brought up he's a crested gecko keeper, and he brought it up, and his crested gecko tested positive for for crypto. Now he was going off on this whole tangent about
Mhm.
how he was bashing the breeder, and then one of the girls who did the podcast, in a polite way, checked him and was like, "Well, listen, there's two types of crypto. Most reptiles have this type of crypto. There's only this type that kills animals and this. She got right to the science of it and kind of like told the dude flat out like it wasn't crypto that killed your animal. Fact, and it wasn't going to give it to any other animal because it didn't have this type, it had this type. And she knew the science of it, but I didn't know how correct she was either. So I figured like, huh,
I don't know either.
interesting. But she's sounded.
But that's something I would need to research more
I
because
watched the
there are
video and
different
I'll send it to
strains
you because
of.
someone sent it to me too, and it's
Yeah, yeah, no,
very
please
interesting.
do.
Very interesting.
Because if we did have an issue like widespread crypto in Cresties, it would be like front
That's
page headline
what
like,
shocked me
oh
with
my
this. I'm like,
god,
why
like
is no one else hearing about this?
shut FedEx down for a few months, in my opinion. I wouldn't let anything in or out for like a year. Like, to be totally honest, if we had something of that, and I'm pretty like ear to the ground with the powers that be in the community that would be
What do you
tracking
know
that kind of
about
stuff.
what do you know about parasites? Did you ever hear that, you know, all of these animals technically have parasites. They have a healthy, they have healthy bacterias and there's a healthy parasite load and they can get them from crickets. And what do you know about all of these parasites and stuff with animals, with these?
I love parasites. I wrote a lot of stuff on parasites in my when I got
Okay.
my degree. So, um, if you have crickets and you feed crickets, it's very likely that you or people in your house or reptiles or somebody somewhere has pinworms. Pinworms are so common. If you're wait,
Oh, okay.
I love laying this on people. No, unless your butthole's itchy, you're probably fine. That's why you wash your hands. But no, like I mean, there is some truth that par- parasites are very common in other parts of the world and in animals. The amount of people that come into a veterinary hospital, like my dog doesn't have worms, and we're like, your dog has tons of worms. It's like astronomically high. But absolutely, they can and do get parasites. I'm talking things like either whether it's like tiny worms like pinworms or larger worms, hookworms, whipworms, roundworms. or I'd have to look into this for crested geckos, but things that you may be familiar with from dogs also, like giardia. But the things that could be transferred from animal to human are going to be parasitic generally in nature. I'm sure a lot of, I should test a lot of my animals. I'm sure a lot of the crested geckos, just like a lot of the dog and cat population, has some parasite load. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say like probably 25% of dogs have hookworms, like 25, like I pulled that number out of nowhere, but like like in a vet clinic, if I see 50 dogs in a day, like 5 of them will have worms. Okay.
So is
Like,
there such thing as a healthy parasite load though? Like, is it okay, or would you treat everything that has?
I mean, in a
Yeah,
mammal, I would treat it. Reptile, I'd have to get back to you. I
oh, you do.
do
That's what my
deworm my
next question
animals
was. You
like
do,
once
okay.
a year. The medication is, the brand name is Panacur, Panacur.
Horse
The
one, so
generic
the
is
equine
fenbendazole.
one. So that's what I have. I never
Yeah,
used it. But I got the
it's
25
if you've
milligrams
had a dog with
tube,
worms, it comes. Yeah, it comes like in a powder. It comes in a liquid. It's like a white
the white and blue tube.
substance. I like to do like a once a year deworming. Fenbendazole, Panacur is like very benign, very safe. You should be able to get it over the counter. Again, not I can't give legally can't give medical advice. But you can take in a little crested gecko poop to a vet, and for under
You
$50, they can
do.
test it for a
Okay.
variety of intestinal parasites. Most of the worms, like roundworms and stuff, are honestly probably much too large to be like infesting a gecko. Like roundworms can be quite large. Definitely, that's something that I would I personally would like to do more research on. But healthy parasite load,
I've always said it's for
they're a lot of them probably have parasites and they live with it. But I would like to argue parasites are
me
not
too.
healthy.
That's what's always got me thinking.
But
Is like when people say there's a healthy parasite load. I'm like, there may be a healthy bacteria load, but I don't know about a parasite load.
well,
It's a little
gut
different. Two
gut
totally
bacteria is
different ball games,
different
man.
because parasites are going to create, I mean, issues. Anything from like a distended abdomen to a lot of them will actually attach to like the intestines, and they feed on blood. It can create like anemia,
Sure,
can create like bloody
sure,
stools, can create malnutrition. I mean,
sure. That's what's always got me
I
creeped
wouldn't
out.
have
And
had a better answer for you, but that's
I
my
bought I bought the dewormer, and I always keep it just because. I guess I don't know if I had the intention of worming everything. I don't know. I feed so many crickets that it's like the odds are that if I got rid of them all in a day, that next week I'm going to have them all again. Like I don't know why.
yeah.
I don't know why.
It's
I've just
something,
never been.
follow up with me. I'll message a couple of my
I'm
veterinarian friends
curious.
that
Love
are,
to.
again, they're veterinarians and they're board certified to work with reptiles. Kind of get a better opinion for you. Maybe we can like add a pin a
Yeah, that'd
comment
be
on this
awesome.
video um with some good advice on that. But a lot probably have parasites, and don't just start
Yeah.
giving stuff to your reptiles. Like don't just go get like ivermectin. Don't
That's my thing,
just
right? Is it
don't
that
like
so many people will say it's like a common thing to hear that they all have it, that you should treat it, but no one's like you don't hear the go get it tested, then treat it. It's just like I just feel weird about pumping my animal full of medicine for something I don't know that it has. Like, and it's I don't know.
Yeah, no,
More
I hear you on that, and
science
that's
behind it
where
again.
it's I would argue to have like fecal, it's like a fecal float analysis, and any eggs or ovum of the bacteria, the parasites will float to the top, and it's easy to see with a microscope. It's a very simple test. It's not invasive. Something that I would like to do with my own animals, and probably we could like
Yeah,
follow up
hell
on
yeah,
this
that'd be
topic more.
awesome.
But a lot of the big breeders and the people I know that work in like zoos, we do it as a routine. It's like something set up by the vet as routine. And be very careful what you give your animals. Something that's safe for a crested gecko might not be safe for this gecko, for this reptile. Like, you
That's
just
what I'm
gotta be
worried
so
about the
careful. So always
panic
do
here
it
is
under
it says
veterinary
on there
advice.
that it's I mean, I don't know if it says it's 4 horses or there's just a picture of a horse on it, but like it's like in a giant syringe, like it's made for a horse, you know? Like I'm like, why am I supposed to give this to my
So
crested
you
geckos? Like,
no, so it it comes in a ton of forms. If you go to like PetSmart and go to like the cat area, you'll probably find like a little powder packet that has a cat on it. It's Panicure's a name brand of fenbendazole dewormer.
that's me for you. Very interesting. All right, so we're over 2.5 hours here. I
We've been
am
cooking.
so sorry because I've been like all over the place. I mean, it's like
No, I love it. I like the
eh,
chaos. We'll need
that's
to
what
do
I'm.
like a
That would be
follow up,
awesome. That'd be
like
awesome. I could like
vet or behavior
like
episode.
hone in more
That would
on
be so
one
fun.
topic other than like trying to figure out where my next question is, or my mind is asking 10, but I can only get one out. So I'm like, it's
I love it. That's how I am in my life. So
awesome. But it'd be awesome to have you back. I think you're doing amazing things. I think that as long as you want this, right? As long as you want this hobby. I remember when you
yeah.
actually first, I don't know where I saw you, but I so might have been with Scott, but somewhere when you were just starting to do this, and I was like, this girl's got a bright future in this. And it's
Oh, that's
probably
so sweet.
2 years now since I saw that, and here you are. But I genuinely
My
think you do.
gosh.
You have a very bright future in this hobby. It's your passion, the desire to learn. You again, like I said earlier, you bring something super refreshing to the table. Just your ability to think outside of the box and have science backing you. I mean, it's very unique, very unique situation.
Thank you. That is seriously the best compliment. And I just always want to have like friendly and good vibes. And there's already enough people that are kind of bringing things down
Sure,
that I'm
no
with you,
reason
like
for it.
lift people up. And I know, like, for you, you don't get really like you're not getting any monetary nothing out of doing this podcast except for the fact that you're helping to spread good information and just I love what you're
So
doing with
I
getting
appreciate
people on here and different perspectives and like having
I
these
appreciate it.
conversations.
Well, that's
I
it,
love
right? Is I
that.
want everyone to see that
Great.
there's options, right? Like nobody's perfect. We all do things
Yeah.
differently. I mean, we could talk
Yeah.
to 100 people about the
Mm-hmm.
same topic. You'll never hear the same story once or twice. You know? So it's like,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
I just don't want people to be intimidated. Is what I'm trying to break down barriers, right? I want
Yeah.
the walls kicked down. I want people to share information. I want people to be friends and not fight and argue and shit talk. We all do that in our day job, right? Like you don't need to
Right.
do the stuff here.
Right.
Like this is our happy place. This is the one thing in all of our lives that we
Yeah.
should not be arguing about. Like should be nothing to argue about.
Yes.
You know, share. You know, if someone makes a mistake, you help them out. I mean, and it's all working.
Yeah.
It's all working. I've had great guests. Everybody I talked to has been incredible people. You know, you're awesome. It's a pleasure having you. I knew when Scott, you know, was started going off, and I was like, all right, that's the type of person we're
Scott is
looking
a
for. Scott
gem.
is a gem. Scott
Scott
is
is
a
like
gem.
he's the best
Oh, he was
person,
telling me about
literally.
the mouse. You had a mouse running across your flora fauna.
Oh my god.
So he was tap dancing on your carpet.
I swear there was a mouse in a hotel room and they were staying in the next to me because it's at a reptile show and they start moving all the furniture and they thought I was crazy because they couldn't find it. There, Scott, there was a mouse in that hotel room and I heard it and you might not have found it, but it was
That's funny.
there.
See, Scott is funny. Scott's a good dude though. Very, very, very awesome person.
Also pulled a tick off of him after hiking in New
Yeesh.
York, so he owes me.
A lot of problems with those damn things this year too, huh? Save that for another podcast.
Not in
Really?
Florida.
You guys don't even have ticks in Florida? They're just not a big problem.
Not
Oh my
really. Not
God, they're
really,
terrible
no.
up here. Terrible, terrible. You can't walk through. I mean, even in yards. My dog came in from the yard the other day, and my wife was pulled a tick off him. I mean, that's never happened before. So it's like, nah,
Mm-mm.
hate it.
Not for me.
Talk about parasites. Listen, skeeve me out. Skeeve me out.
Next
Oof.
time, parasitology
I'm
class.
down. I think that it's something people should know for sure, you know, but definitely not
Yeah.
on me or in me. All right. So where can everybody find you? Where are you? Can they buy your animals? Do you have anything you want to, anybody you want to shout out or anything you want to promote? Give us your elevator pitch.
Sure. Well, so right now I'm definitely not super active online. Active in the gecko community, but just not like on like daily Instagram. Instagram's a good way to find me. Glowing Geckos LLC. If I don't message you back, please send like 2 or 3 more messages. I've been having a lot of issues with Instagram messaging. And then the other way, my website, I saw my mouse meat walk by, glowinggeckos.com. Like I said, it was something went down with all of my contacts. It's back
There you
up,
go.
y'all. So glowinggeckos.com or Instagram, glowing geckos LLC. I have tons of geckos. So if you want something like, I want a red male, lily, phantom, blah, 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 like I probably got you
Awesome.
right now. And hopefully we'll be really active again in the coming months and back on palm shows, just sharing my crazy to
Awesome.
everybody.
Good.
That's what makes
Are
me
you
happy.
selling geckos on Sunday with Scott? Or are you selling geckos? Or are you just going to do a show with him?
I don't know. Normally I do with him, but we might
Okay.
just be hanging
Or
out.
if you are, then I'll make a reel and
So,
get it out so people will know. I mean, I'll direct them towards Scott anyway.
ooh, thank you. To be determined. I'll probably have some stuff there. Let's
There
be
you go.
honest. So it'll probably be like a hang out, and we're gonna open Labubus. You might not know what a Labubu is, but
I know. All
you'll
right.
learn.
Do you sell on Morph Market too? Can people find your animals on Morph Market, or are you not doing Morph?
Yes, I'm on Morph Market, Glowing Geckos LLC. I probably don't have anything on there though. I've been really spoiled with shows in Palm Street to not like have to sit and do like like it can take 6, 7, 8 hours to shoot like
Yeah.
20 geckos. So you can't definitely message me there, but there probably aren't listings
And
right now.
where do you have any shows coming up? Is there any shows in the flesh where maybe all your fans can come and see you and say hello in the flesh?
Yes, most of the South Florida shows I'm at. So there's the new Zane's World show in July in West Palm Beach. I do Reptilian Nation out here. I do most of the Repticons like Orlando, Kissimmee, anything that's like the national show I'll be at in Jacksonville. So anything that's like in Florida, like Repticon, Reptilian Nation, Scales, I'll
Awesome.
probably be there.
Very cool. And when,
I love shows.
if I know you'd mentioned a couple of these articles that you were drawing up and working on, do you have any rough estimates on when those are going to come out and where people will be able to find them once you do publish them?
They'll
Okay.
be announced on all my social media. So if you just follow
Awesome.
me on Instagram, I'll probably have updates, like mini updates in about
Awesome.
4 to 5 months. And then realistically, like about a year. Research
Awesome.
takes a long time. And then I'll have also unofficial, like mini research projects along the
Awesome.
way too. So those will definitely be on Instagram. And yeah, if you are a research nerd, please, 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 like chime in, do the studies with me, ask questions. Like
There
I
you
think
go,
it's so
guys.
fun, and anybody can
Sure.
start doing it.
Follow Glowing Geckos, guys. If you want to see some the science and the studies and the reports, she's gonna post them. She's gonna make them available to us, man. Reach out to her. Maybe you have something to contribute. Maybe you have questions to ask. I mean,
Yeah.
get involved, people. Talk. Closed mouths don't get fed,
Yes,
man. And we're not gonna
please.
get any better as a community unless we start talking to each other. So start communicating,
Exactly.
guys.
Yes.
All right. Well, again, it was a complete pleasure having you
Good.
here. I can't thank you enough. I mean, your whole past with these animals. I mean, doing front flips off of dolphins. I mean, it's like, and I really don't even know what to say. I mean, it's very, very impressive. Very, very impressive. Now you have geckos doing front flips
Thank you
off your hand.
so much. You're amazing, Anthony, and thank you for what you do to get this out there to the
I
gecko
appreciate
people.
you. Guys, thank you all for coming. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Go follow Glowing Geckos.
Yeah.
Please show your love, show your support. Stay weird, people. Did you disappear?